news headlines at 3:30.
In sports, the Sawa 3 Junior Bucks invited to train with Springboks ahead of the Rugby Championship. Baby Proteas squad named for Netball Youth World Cup, and Ellis proud of Banyana Banyana despite WAFCON exit. More details at 3:30.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
This July, journey beyond the horizon with Chasing the Sun. 5 mesmerizing episodes every Sunday at 7:30 on SABC2 from 13 July to 10 August. Feel the thrill of the adventure, the power of discovery, and stories that light up the skies. Missed an episode? No worries. Stream anytime, anywhere on SABC Plus. No subscription required. Chasing the Sun. Your Sunday nights just got brighter. Tune in to SABC2, Sundays at 7:30 or watch on SABC Plus on demand.
For the love of the game.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. SAFM, in collaboration with the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz, brings you the Jazz for Young People concert happening at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July 2025. Tune in to Seasons and the Soundtrack of Your Life, broadcasting live. This unique event is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity and community spirit. Bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz from young musicians, curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring National School of the Arts Band, Willow Crescent Magnet School of Music Band, Biko's Manor, and many others. Have fun while doing good. Tickets are available at Quicket for just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I'll tell you what, I'm looking at this this quote from the book by Zibuziso Mkwanazi. You know, he's the head of the Avatar Agency Group, and from his book he says, leaders fight the worst days to win the best days. You got that? Leaders fight the worst days to win the best days. Now, that could apply to every one of us leading in some way or the other. Well, what about Gayton McKenzie and Kenny Kunene? My name's Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse. For 3 hours, starting now, we reflect the pulse of the nation. What you feel, what I feel, what everybody else feels, and we amplify that on radio, via YouTube, visually, streaming live, all different ways, all around the country, all around the world. So, looking forward to engaging with you. 086 000 2032. Save that number, and then WhatsApp 0614 104 107 and hashtag the National Pulse when you're tweeting and tagging us here on SAFM Radio. So it is in that perspective of leaders trying to understand what to do in the worst days to win the best of days that we talk about Gayton McKenzie and Kenny Kunene. You may know this. Last night, it happens like this every day nowadays. When we end the show, something happens at 9. So Kunene, as you know, a key member of the Patriotic Alliance, was found at the house of Katiso KT Molefe. Now, that person, KT, is allegedly connected to the killing of DJ somebody. So there's clearly an issue, which means questions needed to be asked of Kenny Kunene. It is in that context that the Patriotic Alliance leader, Gayton McKenzie, then, last night asked Kenny Kunene to take a 30-day leave of absence. He did say he believes he's 100% innocent, but he asked him to take a 30-day leave of absence immediately to allow an investigation to take its course without hindrance. Well, don't take my word for it. Here's Gayton McKenzie.
Who that guy? The newspapers asked me, do you believe Kenny Kunene's story? I said, of course. Of course I believe his story. I knew I told Kenny a while ago to say the media hates us, he must, because when he got involved in politics, in positions as a state, he had one of the best online companies. I said to him, we must use this company again. He says he can't, he already gave it to some young people. He promised them. And I said, as long as they bring PA stories, because we don't want to talk to the media. So I knew already that he's given it to young people. I know that. He told me, when I asked him, listen, I said I want to buy newspapers. I want to buy a newspaper because we don't get a fair shake. The day get all the... He said to me, he says, hey, it's going to be, I can't do that because I've given my word. Right. That's the first point. So to all the media that asked me, do you believe what Kenny said? 100%. I do. I believe him 100%. 100%. I know this man. Let me tell you who's Kenny Kunene. People think Kenny is my friend. Kenny is not my friend. Kenny was my friend. Kenny has gone past being a friend. He became the brother I never had. I grew up not having a brother. And you know how you know somebody's your brother and he irritates the living daylights out of you sometimes. And Kenny has been the one person that made me change my life in jail. Kenny has been the constant in my life. Kenny is the godfather of my children. I'm the godfather of his children. I don't even hang out with Kenny. He's a socialite. I am not. He's a socialite. I'm not. Kenny will still DJ. I'm hopeless in the club. I don't go out much. My going out is when I go to a restaurant or just hanging with my friends at my house. Like when we watched Springboks the other day, my friends came to watch. And Kenny has been the one guy that inspired me in jail to change my life. I know Kenny, and I tell you now, Kenny will never get involved with murderers. That's not him. Why would you want to get involved with people that Now, when me and him differs, he doesn't believe he was set up. I do. He doesn't believe it. He says, no, I wasn't set up. I think he was set up. By who? I don't know yet. I just know this thing smells like a setup, but I've got no proof of that. He doesn't think that. He says, no, I don't think so, and whatever. Because Kenny is a people's person. Like he's got a trusting nature about him. Now, a murder is a serious thing. This guy, I've forgotten now what his name is, the one that was arrested. I'm glad he got arrested. They must come and arrest all of them because I heard that gun killed like 10 people. I'm glad they arrested him. And he's not the only one. They must still come and arrest all the others. Because we're a country that has a problem of killings. I know how much love Kenny had for this DJs, all the DJs, whether it's somebody or whatever. He knew all of them. If you put a DJ here, I wouldn't even know who he is. I'm just showing you. So, Kenny doesn't believe he was framed, or not framed, he was set up. Now I'm saying to you, that man is a good man, Kenny Kunene. Kenny will not hurt a fly. Kenny has found himself in something that he doesn't understand at the moment. I spoke to him 10 minutes. I was supposed to speak to him for half an hour. We spoke for an hour. That's why I was late for the live. Because he doesn't understand what's really happening here. But I want to say to people, I can't come here and tell you Kenny's got nothing to do with this thing. I can't come here and lie and say Kenny's got nothing to do with this thing if I knew the truth. But I'm telling you what the truth is. The truth is that Kenny's got nothing to do with this. Kenny is not a violent person. Never been violent. I was the violent one day in jail. Kenny will always be the peacemaker. He's so trusting of people. So, I asked myself, if this was any other PA member that is here on the news and the party's name is being mentioned, and now I know Kenny. I know he's innocent. I know he's not guilty of all these things I read on the comment sections of people. But I ask myself as the leader, if this wasn't Kenny, what would I have done? Would I have, if I didn't know the person, would I have, like I know Kenny, would I have defended the person? No, I would not have defended the person. So as the leader, I'm going to subject Kenny to the same things I would subject any one of you and myself. These allegations of people must be tested. It's not enough that I, as his brother, know that he's innocent. There must be an investigation. He said he's never called the guy, his phones must be given in. He said the guy sent him a thing. Those things must be investigated. And we are going to appoint tomorrow, and we'll tell you. And in a group of advocates and lawyers to investigate this matter. I'm going to give them 30 days to investigate this matter, and then their report I will share with you. I believe Ken is innocent, but that's not enough. Murder is a serious thing. This is a serious allegation that goes around by the Democratic Alliance, by all the parties. So I don't want PA to be the party where we put things under the carpet. Even if we know, even if I know. So I'm saying to you, Kenny Kunene will be investigated. And I'm going to tell you who's going to investigate him. Lawyers of good character. And while he's being investigated, I'm going to remove him from being an MMC. I'm going to write to them. I'm also going to tell him to stand back from politics for 1 month until the investigation is done. That's the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. It's the hardest thing. To act against Kenny Kunene. Yeah, it's the hardest thing I ever had to do. But you see, the party must always come first. The party must always come first. And no one is bigger than the party. Kenny Kunene has nothing to hide, and the investigation will prove that. But I don't want you to think there's VIPs in the PA. I don't want you to think. I want you to know. Just as Kenny is going to be subjected to this as our deputy president, and he must stand back from politics for 1 month or for as long as the investigation is on, he's going to be removed as the MMC. So shall all of us. But it's not enough that me as his brother knows he's innocent. It's important, but I want you to know that I've done many things in my life, and this is the hardest one I ever had to do. That's my brother, man. Kenny doesn't need politics. He's doing this for the love of people.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, says Gayton McKenzie, regarding putting Kenny Kunene on a 30-day leave of absence. So much to consider. One is the actual issue at hand, the actual case, and why was Kenny Kunene there with Katiso Katie Molefe, and what are the implications of that, considering that that person is now allegedly connected to the killing of DJ somebody. That's one. And the second part, the position of the leader of a party being as quick as he has been, with immense speed in making a quick call, but saying he's innocent 100%, but on the other hand saying, I need to take action now. He has got to step aside, well, with that 30-day leave of absence. Right, I want to get your calls. I want to get your reaction, like not just now, now. So call in 086 000 2032, WhatsApp 0614 104 107, text or voice notes, 30 seconds please each via voice note maximum. Ali in Tsakani, you've got a view, go for it. So, Ali, Ali, hello.
Can you hear me?
I certainly can. Go ahead, you're live. What's your point?
A quick one. I wonder what informed Gayton McKenzie the investigation will be completed within 30 days. How does he work out which equation he used? Because each and every investigation has its own merits, but that's not the point I want to make. The point I want to make is Kenny himself says he wanted to resuscitate the newspaper empowering a young journalist. Here is a story, a good opportunity to both empower that young journalist and brand his newspaper, but that story of a person being arrested in their presence is not reported.
All right.
Someone is taking us for granted here.
Okay.
We are a little bit wiser than that.
Well, I think we'll find out all about that in the days ahead. Someone is taking us for granted. Ali, thanks for that. I want to get another comment because I want to get a good barometer of what you're thinking, right? Because, we're on the pulse. You certainly are. Lenius, go for it. Lenius, hello.
Ashraf, one just wants to indicate that Gayton McKenzie may be making a mistake. He should not vouch for Kenny. That is innocent. He should just wait for the outcome of that investigation. If ever a genuine investigation is going to happen. In politics, it is difficult. You can't really vouch for somebody. Otherwise, you'll get surprises at the end of the investigation. Thanks.
Okay, got that. Len, you're saying making the mistake. So, here's two fundamental issues. One, he's saying that he agrees with him 100%. That means he did nothing wrong, right? At the same time, he's decisive about saying it's the hardest thing I've had to do, but he's put him on a 30-day leave of absence out of the position as the MMC for transport in the city of Joburg. So they're two different issues, and there are lessons to learn from that, comparing that to many other people in South Africa, the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, with his party, the ANC, and as a leader of the government. And then, of course, you've had, Jacob Zuma, many others in terms of what have they done under similar circumstances. Younger in Cape Town. Let's get your thoughts. Hello.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, how's it, man? Go for it.
Yes, this brotherhood thing, in politics, for me, it is problematic. And, coming to Kenny Kunene, I've always been skeptical about him, but I've given him a benefit of the doubt, and say, obviously, people can change. But I always knew that only time will tell. So I differ with the president when he said Kenny is in politics because he loves the people. I think he's in politics, to front, because really, we're talking about Kenny Kunene here. His history is available. So yeah, let's wait and see for the investigation, Ashraf.
Okay, there we are. Thank you for that. Here's the point. What did he say? We are. Kenny Kunene is the godfather of my children, and I'm the godfather of his children. And he was a brother. He was my friend. Is now my brother. And within all of that, Gayton McKenzie's had to make a call. But saying also that he's innocent, right? I certainly want to hear more from you. Here's one.
Hi, Ashraf and SA listeners. No. Kenny is not a right man. Kenny Kunene, there's a lot of things that is hidden. We cannot trust him. We cannot trust people like Kenny Kunene. They are just one of those people that Mkwanazi talked about. We are in danger. We are sitting on a time bomb. It's Jola here, East London.
Okay, sitting on a time bomb, but many of you say, in fact, the fact that something's been done about it shows that, in fact, we do have the rule of law. It may sound bizarre, but in many ways, we do. Here's another quick one I want to play before we get to the news headlines.
Gayton McKenzie showed true leadership about what he did. I respect him. Hey, this is Skills in KZN.
Okay, there we are. Thank you for that. I'll tell you what, let me put a question to you. Give me one word for you that describes the decisions taken by Gayton McKenzie. As you've heard, true leadership. Okay, maybe a hyphenated word. Give me one word that describes Gayton McKenzie's course of action and finding out about the allegations in terms of the presence of Kenny Kunene. 3:30, here's Zondela Mbana with the news headlines.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the electoral system in which MPs are accountable to their political parties and not the electorate is a factor that contributed to corruption in South Africa. The presiding judge in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case, Judge Rata Mokgwatleng, has ordered that accused number 5, Fiso Kuhlenduli, be moved from Hoshimampuru Correctional Center in Pretoria to another facility. And medics in Gaza say they are fighting a losing battle to save lives as mass starvation spreads under Israeli aid restrictions. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
To me, last night I watched Banyana losing, and I said, I'm sure I'll talk to Tumi about it today. It's a different mood, isn't it?
Very different mood, but we'll talk about it just a bit later. I want us to start with rugby, where Springbok coach Rassie Rasmus has called up 3 junior Boks to join the senior team's camp ahead of the Rugby Championship. Batobele Tlekani, Cheswell Yosta and Hashim Ped will join the Boks for a 2-week conditioning camp in Johannesburg. Erasmus says that the move is about exposing the youngsters to senior team structures and international standards. Then moving on to netball. Netball South Africa has named the Spar Baby Protea squad that will represent the country at the Netball Youth World Cup. The squad was announced by acting Netball South Africa President Mamidiale, who says that the players were identified as far back to 2022, and the selection is not solely on talent but how well players work together on court. The tournament takes place from the 19th to the 28th of September. Then in football, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis believes that they were the better side. This is despite being knocked out of the tournament by bitter rivals Nigeria. South Africa lost 2-1 with utility player Gabriela Salgado suffering a serious injury late in the second half and being stretchered off. Ellis says that the injury affected the players' focus, leading to a loss of concentration.
But from the players' side, it definitely looked really, really bad because we had to calm them down. We had to make sure that they stay focused, and it was very difficult after that moment. But like I said, once I receive the medical report, we'll know how bad it is.
I don't know if you watched that game yesterday, but it seemed like it was a hectic injury because some of the players were even crying. But in terms of an update on the injury, we're still waiting to hear the extent of it. But the medical officer from SAFA did say it's a very serious injury.
Yeah, and she went straight to hospital, I understand.
Yeah. She did go straight to hospital, and we're wishing her nothing but a speedy recovery. Meanwhile, Durban City have signed former Cape Town City FC goalkeeper Darren Keat. The 35-year-old goalkeeper arrives with a wealth of top-flight experience, having spent the past 4 years between the posts for Cape Town City FC before their unfortunate relegation. Actually, I was looking at social media earlier on. It seems like today Durban City is signing player after player, and I will continue on keeping you updated with regards to that one. In cricket, Andre Russell hit 36 of 15 balls in his final innings before retirement, but could not save the West Indies from losing the second T20 international against Australia in Kingston. The 37-year-old departed to a standing ovation on his home Sabina Park ground after hitting 4 trademark sixes and 2 fours. A record 131-run stand by Josh Inglis, who made 78 not out, and Cameron Green saw Australia race to an 8-wicket win with more than 4 overs to spare. Anything's off with tennis. Venus Williams made a triumphant return to singles tennis yesterday. This is after a 16-month hiatus, defeating fellow American Peyton Stearns 6-3 and 6-4 to reach the second round of the WTA and ATP DC Open. The 45-year-old winner claimed an 819th career double TA singles victory in 97 minutes at the first US Open hardcourt tune-up event. 45 years and still going strong. That is Venus Williams.
I saw her back on court yesterday. I'm like, wow.
At one stage, I think I had myself asking myself, is she ever going to retire? But it seems like the love is still there.
I somehow think when I was a lighty, she started playing, and I'm not a lighty anymore. And
she's still playing.
And she's still playing.
And Serena is younger than her, but she's already retired. Very interesting, but it's always great seeing her on the court. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Alexandra has a stationary truck reported at London Road. The M1 southbound is slow moving towards Boysons, and the N3 northbound in Germiston has a crash reported at Geldnes Interchange. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a crash near Mlaws Road, the N3 eastbound has a crash before Key Ridge, all lanes are open, and the M4 northbound slow moving towards Bayhead Road Bridge. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, and the M3 southbound has a crash reported near Struben Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This Mandela Month, Nelson Mandela once said,
"We have traveled a long journey. We have fought for peace and reconciliation, for social justice, for all men, women, and children."
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, so let me give this to you once again. What's your one word that encapsulates Gayton McKenzie's decision to ask Kenny Kunene to take a 30-day leave of absence? What's your one word? This is also saying that he's not a brother, he's not a friend to me, and he long gone. He's now a brother, and that in fact he's 100% innocent. I know that. But still saying 30-day leave of absence. Lots to reflect on that and compare it to other political parties when faced with similar decision-making and what they did as well, right? Okay, let's talk about other decisions that are being made, and it's not just in South Africa, but it's around the world. But I'll tell you what, it does affect South Africa. The U.S. Congressman Ronnie Jackson has now introduced a bill that will allow, and listen to the wording, it's important, that bill will allow the U.S. presidency to impose sanctions on the South African government officials and ANC leaders. So ANC leaders in particular, right? Government officials and ANC leaders. So what does that mean? According to Jackson, this bill, called the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025, would help advance President Trump's foreign policy agenda. Okay, if you've got a bit of a headache trying to understand it, maybe so do I. Let's find out more with Sherwin Bryce-Pease, the SABC News correspondent, well, based in the USA, of course, right? Sherwin, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
I guess that makes my middle name Panado.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. We all have this huge headache and we just don't know which way to turn. You know, what do you take after Panados when things settle down? Well, I suppose maybe that would be the reaction. What would the South African government, and I know we're jumping here, but in a case like this, how would you expect the government, on the one hand, the president or the presidency, and the ANC in particular to respond to this?
Well, we know how they will react, Ashraf, because this is not the first iteration of the SA Bilateral Review Act. Remember, in the previous Congress in 2024, a similar bill authored by a congressman from Illinois, I believe, a John James, or I think it's Michigan. John James's legislation, similar to Ronnie Jackson's legislation, passed the Republican-dominated House of Representatives in May of last year. Around the same time, South Africa was going through the elections. And that bill then was passed by the House by, I think, a measure 272 in favor, 144 against, and then went nowhere beyond that House of Representatives, right? The legislation was meant to be taken up by the Senate. The Senate was controlled by Democrats, Chuck Schumer at the time, so it went nowhere, and it died when that congressional term, the 2-year term, ended at the end of last year. You now have a reintroduction in April of this year of a similar bilateral review act by Ronnie Jackson that has now passed committee. So it has passed the Foreign Affairs Committee within the House of Representatives. It now has to go to a full House vote. We don't know when that full House vote will take place because Congress is in recess until the end of the summer holidays here in the United States, which means they come back in September when this legislation could then be taken up. But our example of how the South African government reacted to last year's passage of the bill was not to panic. They were quite confident that the Senate wouldn't take it up, and they they wanted the process to play itself out before they really weighed in. The big concern here, Ashraf, is that South Africa does not have a permanent ambassador in Washington, D.C. after the ouster of Ibrahim Rasool in March of this year. And so who is lobbying on behalf of South Africa? Who is meeting and interacting with members of Congress, be that in the House or the Senate? And who is pushing back against this legislation? These are questions that the South African government has to answer. It cannot be the purview of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, right? You know, there's been some interaction around a possible new trade deal and that kind of stuff. That's not the purview of Park Style. This is the work of an ambassador to be engaging with members of Congress. And I don't know who's doing that in the absence of a permanent representative.
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, do we actually have an ambassador? There was some talk, of course, of a key role being played by a one-time senior person in the Department of Finance. I mean, what do we have now?
We don't. We have junior members, a head of mission, essentially there, who serves in sort of a deputy ambassador capacity. But I don't believe that person even has a full ambassador title. And so you have underlings within the diplomatic sphere within the South African embassy, who I'm sure are trying to do the best they can. But you need that level of seniority to engage with members of Congress, certainly at the highest level. And there has been a vacancy there since March.
So where does one go from here? Because obviously, and this goes back to the original point, yes, it's not the first time that the U.S. has acted this way, but it's been an ongoing serial, right, for a good number of months, right? And that's not about to change. But from a South African perspective, I mean, is it something that you just, shrug off and say, just get on with your life and, who needs these Americans or who needs Trump and, that sort of thing? Or is it a case of like, come on, we have got to respond with tact and strategy and turn this narrative around?
Yeah, I think the latter part is certainly what needs to be applicable here. The South Africans might find this entire process quite confusing in a sense. You have this process in the House, but then you also have engagement at the highest levels between the trade representative here in the United States and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. You saw that meeting between President Ramaphosa at the White House with President Trump this year. There has been efforts at the highest level to reset this relationship, but you also then have members of Congress. Remember, Congress is an independent branch of government here, and so they have their own processes. The question is, I don't know exactly who the South African government, who the interlocutors are here in terms of the members of Congress that they're seeking to bring around to their side. Look, it does not mean that this is going to pass the Senate, but the difference between last year's iteration of this bill is that you had Democrats in charge of the Senate. You now have Republicans in both houses with majorities. So the sense we get is that this legislation might be taken up. The question is, will it pass, right? I think you'll require about 60 out of the 100 senators to pass that legislation. And were that then to happen, it would then have to go to the president's desk, and he would have to sign it into law. He can, of course, also refuse to do that. He could decide to veto the bill. So there are interactions that can be happening at various levels of government here. The question is it happening, and to what extent is it happening? Is the president going to get on the phone with President Trump? Are members of the African National Congress going to engage with members of the Republican and Democratic parties here? Is that the role of South African diplomats at the embassy, and who is leading that process? These are some of the questions we need answers to.
And just so that we understand it, I mean, you mentioned the Senate and you mentioned the presidency. In terms of decision-making, I mean, we have our own perspective in South Africa in terms of how, we run things between Parliament or, an executive or cabinet ministers. How does it work there?
Well, members of Congress are allowed to introduce legislation. They get co-sponsors for their legislation. You have to get a majority in the House for it to pass. It then goes to the Senate. The Senate then has its own deliberative process. It takes up the legislation. It would then be debated. And if they don't have the votes for passage, it could stall and die there. So there's no straight line here in terms of how a bill is passed into law. But what it does need is to pass the House of Representatives, and within that congressional session, which is 2 years, go to the Senate, be taken up by the Senate, passed by the Senate, Appropriations bills sometimes only need 50 plus one. Legislation like this will likely need 60 votes. The question is how many Democrats who are in the minority in the Senate will support it. If that then gets beyond the 60 threshold, it then goes to the president for his signature before a law will then be made law. It will be enacted. And then, of course, you get the prescripts from the legislation. The president will have 30 days after the date of enactment, in consultation with the Secretary of State and Defense. They shall certify to the appropriate congressional committees and release unclassified determination explicitly stating whether South Africa has engaged in activities that undermine the United States' national security, foreign policy interests. You then also talked about a 120-day time, a frame in which the president, in consultation with various members of cabinet, will have to provide a list to Congress of senior South African government, ANC officials in particular, who meet the criteria for imposition of sanctions, were they to have engaged in corruption or human rights abuses, which will be a U.S. determination. And then, of course, a long list of reasons for such behavior. And they talk about all sorts of things, interactions with China, the docking of that ship in the Lady R ship in Simonstown, and various actions by ANC leaders and South African government officials that, in the view of Ronnie Jackson and members of the Republican Party that support this legislation, is against the national interests and foreign policy interests of the United States.
Let's just end with this. And I mean, a lot has been said, right? But you asked about who will be doing the lobbying. Now we know that AfriForum in particular, and their comrades, and I'm saying that very intentionally, have been very clear about targeting the ANC. So in this case here, outside of the president and government, right, what ought the ANC as a party be doing now?
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure I have necessarily the answer to that. The African National Congress has its own policy position. South Africa is a sovereign nation, and I think what you hear from members within the African National Congress is that what the United States here is doing is seeking to impose on the sovereign processes of, be that the ANC or the South African government. And so what I think you hear from the party politics is pushback against that. But then what you hear from government is that there needs to be engagement. There is an economic interest here. There are questions around whether AGOA is dying and what will replace that. There are real implications here in terms of the imposition of 30% tariffs, which the South Africans are very much engaged in terms of bringing that number down and seeing where there can be consensus in terms of a new bilateral trade relationship. So, there are foreign policy positions and then there are economic implications here. And so it's a mixed bowl. And where those chips will fall will really be determined by the South African government and perhaps telling the ANC to quell perhaps its positions that have irritated the United States. But that's not a straight line exactly, is it?
Okay, irritate may well be the big understatement of the year. Sherwin Bryce, please appreciate your time and get your panados. Notwithstanding all the other issues that gives us headaches, right? Sherwin, of course, is the SABC News correspondent in the USA. And it means it's time for you to connect. So, of course, you're going to talk about the Gayton McKenzie, Kenny Kunene issue, because I asked you one word that encapsulates for you the decision he's taken to put Kenny Kunene, his brother, on, effectively 30-day leave of absence, and still saying he's innocent, but putting him on leave and doing so decisively, use that word decisively, considering the conversations we've had about other people in the last few weeks. But also this conversation I've just had with Sherwin, what do you make of that in terms of where South Africa, the government, the ANC, sits right now? Welcome to the National Pulse.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
And then you get some days and you try and debate what is it that moves the pulse, and you think it's story A and B and C and D, and you're really not sure. And sometimes it's very clear-cut. But sometimes, as it is now, you could have like 3-4 major stories to consider. So here's one. Survivors and families of victims who were either killed or disappeared during South Africa's liberation struggle, together with the Foundation for Human Rights, have now filed a court application. Well, why? That application seeks to oppose an application. So the application seeks to oppose an application, one blocking the other, if you got that, by former President Thabo Mbeki and the former Justice Minister Bridget Mabandla. Mbeki and Mabandla are seeking leave to intervene on the basis that they have a direct and substantial interest in the proceedings, as they are accused of political interference, something, of course, as you may well be aware of, they have certainly denied political interference in dealing with victims of the struggle in terms of apartheid South Africa, and whether there was sort of hushing things aside. It's been spoken about often. Let's get the thoughts of Dr. Zaid Kimi, who is the Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights. Dr. Kimi, welcome to the National Pulse.
Oh, thank you, Ashraf. Glad to be here.
Much appreciate your time. Right. This is particularly complex, right? I'm trying to see, who's saying what and therefore the position, say, from your organization in terms of what you hope to achieve.
Yes, so ex-President Mbeki and the ex-Minister Mabandla have applied to intervene in our constitutional damages case, and this will be argued on Monday in the Pretoria High Court. And as you pointed out, they wish to intervene because they believe they have a substantial interest in the case, and that their reputations have been harmed or may be harmed when the case is heard. The families and ourselves are opposing their application to intervene. We don't believe that they have any material interest in what we are asking for, and they, one of the main things they asked for was a commission of inquiry, and they don't appear to oppose any of what we've asked for. They merely want to intervene on the basis that they believe that their reputations may be harmed.
But in a case like this, what does intervene mean?
It means that they would become a party to the case, and they would make their own submissions and potentially lead evidence. And this would be a very unusual step, we believe, because the key thing is that the President has already announced that he is establishing a commission of inquiry to be led by retired Judge Kompepe. And so any questions that they have and any information they want to bring forward, the right place to do that is at the Commission of Inquiry. We don't believe that they have any actual interest in the case as it is going forward, and that's why we're going to ask the court to reject the application.
Okay, maybe take a step back in terms of why is it that in fact people and more than one person has actually sort of fingered out people like the former President Thabo Mbeki and former Justice Minister Bridget Mabandla around this issue in the past, which is where you've had struggle victims. There's been some of them have obviously been killed, others disappeared. And in terms of the investigations from the time of the TRC to others, there's been this cloud that says, you know what, some of these cases were just hushed. Why? What gives us the sense that the names I've just mentioned would be not just aware but directly involved in that?
Well, President Mbeki was the chief executive of the country. He was in charge of government, and ex-Minister Mabandla was the Minister of Justice for a substantial period of time. They, of course, deny, to be fair, that they had anything to do with suppressing the cases. We believe there's at least some circumstantial evidence that they may have been involved. But the question of who did what, who gave instructions, we believe all of that needs to be examined thoroughly. And the right forum for it is the Commission of Inquiry. In terms of what we as the families and the FHR is asking the court for, we're simply asking for a declaration that the rights of the families have been violated. And, that is self-evident, that for a period of 15 or more years, there was simply no progress with either investigations or prosecutions. And in the recent past, that has changed. We've had inquests. There are now some criminal prosecutions. But we had this long period where nothing happened. And we believe that is well established, that no one is contesting that there was this long period where nothing happened. We don't believe that was just a mistake. We believe that this was a deliberate act on the part of government and that the people responsible should be held accountable. But we are not, in this case, delving into the details of who exactly did what. We recognize that the appropriate forum for that is this Commission of Inquiry. And so certainly we think President Mbeki and Ms. Mabandla have many other options if they feel their reputations are being damaged. They have resources and they can take whatever other legal action they wish to take. There's no need for them to intervene in our case against the government. They are not a party to the case. They're not being accused directly of anything. We recognize that those issues will be ventilated elsewhere.
Okay, let's end with that. I mean, the point you made about, the families of these victims and they obviously pursue the issue of their rights and what has happened, right? What has been? Give us a sense of what are the families thinking right now? What's their state of mind, and ultimately what would give them a sense of peace here?
I think that there are two things. One is the Commission of Inquiry, so that will give them some vindication of what exactly happened, and I think that's in all of our interests. Find out exactly how these decisions were taken, who took those decisions. The other part of the relief they're asking for is a recognition by the court that their rights have been violated and the payment of constitutional damages to assist these families and others that are in their position to continue to fight for truth and justice. So, in many of these individual cases, prosecutions are no longer possible. All of the perpetrators have died. All avenues of justice have been closed off. So this is really the last opportunity that these families have to have a decent attempt at finding out what happened and where it is still possible to continue to pursue truth and justice.
Okay.
Families they don't believe that President Mbeki's intervention is at all helpful.
Okay, got that. In pursuit of truth and justice. Dr. Zaid Kimi, the Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights. Much appreciate you giving up your time here today. Now, I'll tell you what, let's move on to other issues. Well, we can react to that as well. It's a big issue with the former president appearing at that appearance on Monday, right, that court appearance. But you can give me your thoughts, but there's nothing stopping you commenting on the Gayton McKenzie issue, Kenny Kunene. Here's some comments.
This is Ashraf, and good afternoon. One word for this entire mess. It's guilty.
One word is guilty, but I mean, you're not saying who's guilty, so, okay?
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf, Mafuta. Ashraf, the happenings of the past 2 to 3 weeks in this country shows clearly that this country is on a crossroads. And when people put their trust on people like Kenny Kunene, for me, it shows a very high degree of desperation. Honestly, Ashraf, something has to give. We don't deserve the type of leadership these people always display. The Mandelas of the world, the Sisulu of the world, are maybe turning their graves asking what happened to this beautiful country. Ashraf.
Okay, Mafuta certainly being very clear what he feels about it. I'll take more comments, more calls, more tweets as well, if you're up for that, using that hashtag, The National Pulse. All of that around the issue of Gayton McKenzie, the leader of the Patriotic Alliance, and Kenny Kunene, and the key people of that political party, and Kunene now being asked to take a 30-day leave of absence. Never mind that Gayton McKenzie says he believes him 100%. Are you confused? Right, let's get the news. It's now 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, Justice Zondo states factors contributing to corruption in the country, and aid groups warn of mass starvation in Gaza. For SAFM News, I am Ondela, and a very good afternoon. Former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the electoral system in which MPs are accountable to their political parties and not the electorate is a factor that contributed to corruption in South Africa. He says the country's electoral system has been set up in a way that allows those in power to be involved in corrupt activities without much being done. Zondo was speaking at the South African Council of Churches National Anti-Corruption Conference underway in Johannesburg. Zondo says although independent candidates have been introduced, none of them have been voted into Parliament.
We remain represented by political parties in Parliament and legislatures. This system gives party bosses too much power. This means that if the party bosses want members of parliament who are members of their party to vote in a certain way, they will control them. And therefore, the victim there is the fight against corruption, because they will make sure that such a vote of no confidence does not succeed. We have been there.
The National Assembly is currently voting on a second round of the appropriation bill. The process began in the morning for the first leg of the bill. It was adopted by 252 votes against 97. The main objective of the appropriation bill is to allocate public funds to various national government departments, including their respective entities. The afternoon session is about the approval of allocation given to each department. The presiding judge in the Senzo Meyiwa murder case, Judge Rata Mokgwatleng, has ordered that accused number 5, Fisoku Hlenduli, be moved from Hoshimampuru Correctional Center in Pretoria to another facility. This follows delays in the trial, with Nduli alleging he has been tortured and denied basic necessities such as blankets. Nduli and 4 co-accused are standing trial at the High Court in Pretoria for the 2014 murder of Bafana captain. Addressing the court, Nduli said his transfer to the CMAX security section had worsened his condition.
Ngiyahlukumezeka laphana inkosi enkantolo ngoba ngisho ukuthi ngafike ngathathelwa ingubo nginqatshela ukufona sikingigeziswa ngamanzi abandayo.
Yeah, you know what, for this case, just to proceed, I don't have the authority to make the order I'm making, but for this case to proceed in terms of the constitution, if it is impossible for accused number 5 to be able to have peace of mind and be able to attend trial and defend himself and give instructions to his advocate, I'm making the order that he must be housed at we call it loco maximum.
The Defence Council has raised concerns over conflicting descriptions of 11-year-old Jaden Lee Meek's clothing during his mother Tiffany Meek's bail hearing. Nova Naidu is cross-examining the investigating officer in the Roteport Magistrates Court west of Johannesburg. The court heard that Jaden Lee's body was discovered on a stairwell with head and neck wounds as well as visible bruising. Naidu questioned the credibility of the investigation, pointing out that a security guard interviewed by police claims he never saw the child.
Do you confirm that she stated that Jaden was wearing a grey long pants? So, going back to my original question, do you confirm that we have 3 different descriptions of the clothing? Okay. So there's contradictions in what the child was wearing or who saw the child wearing certain items of clothing.
I understand
that the applicant will state that the day shift guard stated that he never saw the child entering the complex on the day in question.
Medics in Gaza say they are fighting a losing battle to save lives as mass starvation spreads under Israeli aid restrictions. An orthopedic doctor at southern Gaza's Nazar Hospital told the BBC that many patients there are malnourished. Another doctor at the hospital says there has been no food for 3 days and children are dying in the wards. The BBC's Rushdi Abu Aluf has been speaking with the doctor's family in Gaza.
I spoke to my youngest brother this morning. They said that they had only a small portion of lentil soup for the last 48 hours with his kids. He sent me a photo for his youngest son, and I couldn't recognize him when I saw him. I mean, seeing his picture today, you can show how people are starving in Gaza. Our colleagues who work, also the freelancers who work with us in Gaza, are also suffering from the same condition that everyone in Gaza is suffering. The starvation is real this time.
Recapping the top story, former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the electoral system in which MPs are accountable to their political parties and not the electorate is a factor that contributed to corruption in South Africa. I'm Ondilambana for SAFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sawa Banyana Salgado condition confirmed SA20 Season 4 auction set for 131 million rand showdown in Johannesburg, and Formula One on target to become net zero for 2030. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 R24 westbound in Bedford View, queuing on both routes towards Gillilees Interchange. The N3 southbound in Heidelberg has a truck crash reported near Dustville Interchange, and Jan Smuts Avenue northbound in Parktown has a crash reported at Empire Road. In KZN, the N3 southbound has a crash at Hilton. The M4 northbound is queuing towards Bayard Road Bridge, and the N3 eastbound has a crash reported before Keyridge. All lanes are open. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The M3 southbound has a crash near Sturban Road, and on Jan Smuts Drive in Athlone, there's a crash reported at Cromboom Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Hashtag your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
It all starts with FNB Private. Diversify your portfolio to grow your wealth. Gain global exposure through shares or unit trusts on the FNB app. Tap into international investments and tax-efficient offshore trusts to build your legacy. Unlock invaluable with FNB Private. Help changes everything. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSB and credit provider. FNB International Trustees, FNB IT registration number 3080. Licensed by the Guernsey Financial Services Commission to conduct fiduciary business. T's and C's apply.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. SAFM, in collaboration with the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz, brings you the Jazz for Young People concert happening at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July 2025. Tune in to Seasons and the Soundtrack of Your Life, broadcasting live. This unique event is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity, and community spirit. Bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz from young musicians, curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring National School of the Arts Band, Willow Crescent Magnet School of Music Band, Biko's Manor, and many others. Have fun while doing good. Tickets are available at Quicket for just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, has there been an issue at home in South Africa and abroad that has, emotionally connected you to what has happened, and therefore then gets you to move your own pulse? So, if that is one, I certainly want to hear about it and just tell us about it. But certainly the issues we've raised around Kenny Kunene has certainly dominated the conversation so far. That may change depending on what else comes up, and that's the nature of what we do here on the National Pulse on SAFM. Now, by the way, talking about that, I looked at a picture in the Daily Express. Now, that's a British newspaper, right? And the picture's got you can see a form of an adult, holding a child in his hand or her hands. Maybe it's a female, but a child. And this child is, in South African terms, so thin. You just know this person is totally malnourished. Totally. When you think of the great famines in Africa, sadly, and you wonder how does a person survive, and I'm talking of children, then you wonder. So that's that picture which tells this huge story. And the Daily Express headline says, "For pity's sake, stop this now. The suffering of little Muhammad clinging on to life in Gaza." Now that links to the growing confrontation or the narrative that not only is it an intentional genocide by Israel against the section of Palestine that's called Gaza, but also there's now famine because of the large numbers of humanitarian efforts that try to come into that region to support the people who've got no food, and they've been prevented to a large degree from doing just that. So therefore you have famine. There are people who are starving to death, fighting for every piece of meal. And all of this in the context that you can go back to who said what and who did what a long time ago, but in the reality of now, do we really want to bear witness to an entire people being wiped off the face of the earth? And we all know about it, as has happened in many other parts of the world for generations, and we read about it in our history books. Just reflect on that, and what is the position that, not the government, but that you and I should be taking as we are aware of it. And we certainly are, because this entire issue has been live streamed, hasn't it? Think about that. Let's move on to other issues now. We've touched on this the other day, in fact, yesterday as well, the story of the KZN National School Nutrition Program and payment issues suppliers facing to the recent issues that was raised by the National School Nutrition Program Association on companies being appointed. This was yesterday, where companies have been appointed to provide services around nutrition without following due processes, meaning they were effectively not awarded, and maybe the wording may be right or wrong, a tender of sorts, but they got on the list anyway. So the DA in the KwaZulu-Natal region has taken up an issue on this one here. To tell us more about it is someone who feels strongly about it, the KZN member of provincial legislature and the DA KZN spokesperson on education. I'm referring to Sakile Mgadi. Appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse. Okay, I just want to see if we have the KZN member of provincial legislature with us.
Hi, Ashraf.
I do have you there. Right, Sakile, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Okay, so this is a particularly concerning issue, which we touched on yesterday, and you tweeted about it later on as well. I mean, maybe tell us what you tweeted as a starting point.
So, essentially what's come to our attention are allegations of gross misconduct that have the current NEC for education in the province linked to what we now know are companies that have been scheduled to be awarded tenders for the NSNP, the National School Nutrition Program. the evidence that we had, that we've now submitted for further investigation, shows a specific company that was opened by, or allegedly opened by the MEC himself. And this company is featured on the list of beneficiaries for companies that the department was due to pay as awards for the NSNP. So obviously, as the Democratic Alliance in the province, we're very concerned. Further investigations from us show that there are several other high-ranking ANC officials. There are wives and mothers involved of these connected politicians, and it seems like this issue of companies that are linked to, in particular, ANC politicians that have been benefiting or are due to now benefit from the NSNP is very widespread across most districts in KZN.
Okay, and when you first heard about it, did this surprise you? And I mean, seriously, did that surprise you? Because you'd be aware of checks and balances over a period of time.
So not, and it's quite sad that we've now become almost immune to hearing about politicians and corruption. I myself, as a young politician, am concerned that I sit and serve with individuals that could be implicated in things like this. But what can't happen though is the norm, where these things are sort of swept under the carpet and there's no material action that is seen or justice that is served. And so one of the things that I've done is in consultation with the MEC for Finance, Francois Rogers in KZN, I wrote to him late last night asking that he invoke powers that he has specifically within Section 18(2)(e), which empowers him to exercise control over the implementation of the provincial budget and proper management of revenue and expenditure assets, because we know that this money hasn't been spent yet. It was due to be spent. So what he could do is put a hold on these tenders that are going to these various companies while a investigation determines the validity of some of the information that's come into light here. Yeah.
Okay. And what about, communication to the Minister of Education?
So we know, and I think, previously I was on your show speaking about an appointment of his CFO. We've been sending him correspondence. He never responds. And so I don't think that I owe him any sort of direct engagement, particularly with this, given that he's quite directly involved. And we know that, there's other parties that have come out and said that he must be fired and removed immediately. What we're doing as the DA is following the correct process. And the correct process here is to, because money is involved, send this to the MEC of Finance. He must do a preliminary investigation, give us findings, and then depending on what those findings say, we can then act on that. And that's what we've been doing.
Are you able to tell us anything just about, clearly the allegations here are mass favoritism, nepotism, corruption, all of that combined, and maybe a few other choice words to describe it, right? What do you know? What can you tell us around the environment that let's say you work in, or certainly people within education in that province work in, to understand what has happened here?
Sure. I think there's a growing frustration amongst people from all levels, senior management, in the districts, in the circuits, even in schools, where we say education, and in KZN, education has the biggest budget of any line department in the country, 66 billion rand. And we can't see the tangible change on the ground. This program is chronically facing issues. If it's non-payment of service providers, which we've also talked about previously, it's just the quality of food that arrives for kids, or just food not arriving at all. And we know that in KZN particularly, as a province that's so rural, 2.7 million kids in our province rely on the NSNP as the only meal, they get for the day. And so it is absolutely important that there is, continuation of the program, and that it is not disturbed, but that also funds reach the ground. And I think the growing concern amongst people, like I said, on all levels of government here, is just that there seems to be a blatant disregard for the law and just a blatant looting of funds. Which is what we've now uncovered.
Okay. So very quickly as we wrap up, then how do you get this right between pursuing what is right in terms of the law, but also ensuring that there's no disruption of in this case, food supply to the most vulnerable?
So what we've also done is I'm busy drafting a briefing document for the Minister of Basic Education, Sizwe Kwagube. Obviously, the NSNP is her baby. She's the national custodian of the program. And what we're going to be recommending in that briefing document is that if these allegations are true, that she then moves the program to Treasury in KZN to ensure that if there are processes of awarding of tenders that are done, that they are done above board and that the program doesn't get disrupted. So we won't see whether the allegations are true or not, a disruption in the program. What we will see, though, is a discontinuation of what has been looting of this program, and obviously the consequence management that should follow after that.
Okay, got that. Much appreciate your time, Sakile Mgadi, the KZN member of provincial legislature, as well as the DA KZN spokesperson on education. We spoke about panados and headaches earlier. Here's another one, isn't it? Let's talk about the South African Council of Churches National Anti-Corruption Conference after this.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
They both have a rich history of glory. Amakosi tackle the Porcupine Warriors.
This is as good as it gets.
This is the Toyota Cup.
The game you've been looking forward to on your football calendar.
Giants refuse to fall.
The big game.
The big game. On Saturday, 26 July at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus across the entire African continent and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport in proud partnership with Kaizer Chiefs Football Club.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 175-gram Lifebuoy Hygiene Soap. Buy any two for 24 Rand, plus 50 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 3 kg Sunlight Hand Washing Powder for 79.99, plus 200 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million Rand in instant cash. Prices valid until 6 August 2025, while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, this you should make a note of this. It's really important. I think the Department of Small Business Development will be hosting the Global SME Meeting, which is all about empowering small businesses to drive economic growth. Now, this happens tomorrow, so tune into the Talking Point tomorrow, Thursday, the 24th of July, as we bring you the latest updates and insights from the conference. So that means tomorrow, 9 to 12. You got that, right? 9 to 12 on the Talking Point.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get further reaction on some of the issues. No, in fact, what we'll do is I want to get reaction, but we'll put that on pause for the moment. Now, we've been talking about another issue, just picking up on what we said about the goings-on in KZN. But here's one. The South African Council of Churches have just begun its two-day National Anti-Corruption Conference today. This gathering brings together church leaders from across the country to reflect on the ongoing moral and spiritual crisis of corruption. So we'll get reaction and maybe a good sense of what happened today in a moment. But firstly, the retired Chief Justice Raymond Zondo was actually the keynote speaker at the conference, and this is what he had to say about, well, you know what, corruption in South Africa.
It has been 30 years since 1994. It has been over 30 years since 1994. And we have been fighting corruption. But instead of it going down, it is going up. It is as if we are not fighting.
It is going up. It is as if we are not fighting it. It is in that context that we now cross to Horisani Sitole, the SABC News reporter who's been covering that story. Horisani, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Hi, Ashraf. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Well, you get conferences and conferences, and this one is a conference that you want to keep your eye on. So it's day one. Give us a sense of what's happened today.
Actually, Ashraf, it was a very good day, I should say, because we've seen the public protector also gave a side of the story. Already people have just heard now for retired Justice Raymond Zondo also talking about the issues that we have. And also the Auditor General, here we're talking about Sakani Maluleke. She also gave her side of the story, which is very interesting for South Africans, where they are all raising concerns over the level of corruption that the country is facing at this stage. And looking back at the issues of corruption we've had now, not so long ago, revelations made by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, just yesterday, Sunday, we see one of the politicians, Kenny Kunene, being found in in the house of one who is suspected to be the mastermind behind the killing of DJ somebody. So those are some of the things that we've heard, and hoping that even going forward tomorrow, we're going to hear more voices talking around those lines.
And just pick up on what the retired Chief Justice Raymond Zondo made about, it's as if we're not even fighting corruption, it's getting worse. What has been the reaction in terms of the type of comments that he's made?
Actually, it seems like, most people there, they really appreciate it. Even if you look at the people who've been joining the conference online, they've been singing praises about that. Talking about Justice Zondo, he gave an example of South Africa used to have, South Africa cannot fight corruption without a dedicated police force, because that's where the grassroots of who should be arrested should start. And then he talked about the judiciary and also the NPA. He made mention that back in the days, there used to be the scorpions, if you remember, people remember the scorpions, and saying that the criminals fear the scorpions, but then after the Polokwane conference of the ANC, a resolution was taken that it must be disbanded. He made mention of he no longer has a trust, or he's got little faith in the Hawks. He gave examples of corruption allegations at PRASA, which he says some of the cases were were presented to the Hawks by the then PRASA body in 2017. To this day, 2025, he knows of no one who has been arrested along that. So he doesn't think the Hawks are equipped enough or there's enough will and all that. And he also makes examples of, he says another thing that's at stake is the South African electoral system. He gave an example of if a party, people go to parliament via political parties, it means then if the corruptors are the head of those parties, they'll remain deciding. For example, he gave an example of a vote of no confidence. They can dictate that as to how people should vote. So now, although last year we saw the introduction of independent candidates into our elections, he says it hasn't given an impact. If people are still having, even though now we have coalition governments, he says such two parties can still collude and still continue with corruption.
What has been the mood of the conference? Because clearly, there's no shortage of getting key, high-profile speakers with immense influence, right? But at some stage, you have to internalize that and say, okay, where do we go from here?
Yes, I think the way forward. Tomorrow there's that. There's going to be more of the approach, we hope. But then we've heard the Council of Churches itself. They saying that they need to play a role as church. You go back to the fight against apartheid. They've always been there. They've been mediating. You look back at people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu, many more religious leaders who have been there. We had the Secretary General of the SACC asking a question that how would they, as the church, protect whistleblowers, for example. And he also gave an example that actually corruption doesn't start with the mayor, corruption doesn't start with the politician, but the corruption starts in our own spaces. One having to give 20 rands to a traffic officer, for example, for them not to be prosecuted. Those are some of the things that are of concern. So we are hoping that actually most of the things that have been said today in the resolutions tomorrow is going to be a directive as to which direction they should take.
Well, tomorrow really is another day in this case. Horisani Sitoli, appreciate your time. The SABC News reporter covering that significant coming together of members of the South African Council of Churches as part of their National Anti-Corruption Conference. Right, your reaction? I need to hear it. 4:30. Let's get the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, Johannesburg Water has officially taken over the billing functions for water and sanitation services from the city of Johannesburg, effective from the 1st of this month. The bail application of the man linked to the murder of a Ekurhuleni chief forensic auditor, Mpho Mafole, has been postponed to the 15th of next month by the Kempton Park Magistrates Court for further investigation. And former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the electoral system in which MPs are accountable to their political parties and not the electorate is a factor that contributed to corruption in South Africa. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg House.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Jimmy, you're in charge of sport. You can choose. You've got like 4 or 5 stories to touch on. What are you going to touch on now?
I was hoping to start off with an update on Gabriel Salgado's injury. Was actually promised by SAFA that I would have an update on it. However, there's some sort of delay because obviously it's a sensitive issue. But I'll definitely keep a close eye with regards to that update and just inform our listeners also on how she's doing in hospital. Meanwhile, 2 of South Africa's most respected football academies, the School of Excellence and Remember Elite Sport Academy, have voiced serious frustrations over the continued failure of several professional clubs to pay development and solidarity fees owed to them for producing elite level players. The academies say their operations are now under threat due to this long-standing issue. At the heart of the complaint is a failure by some professional clubs to pay the mandatory development and solidarity fees. And SOE football manager Mojalefa Matebula says that SAFA needs to take ownership of this process.
Look, I think in South Africa, to be honest, SAFA has dropped the ball when it comes to funding of youth development and also with PSL. But sometimes I think maybe it's because people that are running this institution also they are running football clubs, so maybe there is a bit of reluctance to really focus on this issue of solidarity and development fee because it's going to hurt my institution. But the reality of the matter is that when you look at from the 1995 ruling, I think it was Bosman or something.
Yes.
That changed the trajectory in terms of player movement, but also people realize that player movement could be used to fund youth development, over and above sponsorship and subscription from parents and over. But in terms of you producing a professional player, that can fund development.
Moving on to cricket, the SA20 Season 4 auction showdown is set for 131 million rand available across 6 teams to fill 84 player slots on the 9th of September. Franchises were allowed to retain or pre-sign up to 6 players before the player window closed on the 18th of July. And big names still up for grabs include Aiden Markram, Quinton de Kock, Lungi Ngidi, Tabarai Shamsi and Gwena Mapaka. In netball, Baby Proteas head coach Precious Mthembu says that she feels confident about the 15-player squad that is selected to represent South Africa at the upcoming Netball Youth World Cup in Gibraltar. This is after Netball South Africa acting president unveiled the final under-21 national team squad in Johannesburg this morning. Mthembu says that her team has a positive mindset and is ready to take on the world stage.
I think we're in a good mindset. Really excited about the group that you've chosen. No, hiccups on terms of selections. I think the group they've chosen are the girls who are really going to present well, and we really solicit them according to the respect we have for our nation and the respect we have for our opponents who are going to be facing there in Gibraltar. And we're really looking forward to tough competition. We are not going to undermine our teams that are in our pool, so we're going to be really making sure that each game we take it game by game, and making sure that obviously the players get all the information they need going forward.
In rugby, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has called up 3 junior Boks to join the senior team's camp ahead of the rugby championship. Batobele Tlekani, Cheswell Josta and Hashim Ped will join the Boks for a 2-week conditioning camp in Johannesburg. Erasmus says that the move is about exposing the youngsters to senior team structures and international standards. Then in tennis, Ben Shelton began his journey at the DC Open with a strong performance. He claimed a 6-3, 6-4 win over Mackenzie McDonald. And finally, in motorsport, F1 says that it's on target to become net zero in the next 5 years, effectively having zero carbon emissions by 2030. The sport has delivered a 26% reduction since 2018 from the equivalent 228,000 tons of CO2 a year to 168,000, according to its annual sustainability report. And F1's president Stefano says that the 5 net zero target has a concrete goal and already visible in the significant reduction of our sport's carbon footprint. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour. Hopefully, I do have an update with regards to Salgado. I'm definitely keeping a close eye on that one.
Just for those who may have missed it, give us some context. So that was the Banyana game against Nigeria yesterday in the Women's African Cup of Nations tournament. It was 90th minute thereabouts. The game was tied. And then what happened?
And then she got that injury. I actually missed what actually happened. And unfortunately, they can't play a replay because there's rules around that now. But you could see the reaction of the players after they saw her, that it was a serious thing. Some of them were crying, and Coach Desiree Ellis was trying to console some of them. But I think for me, I realized how serious it was when I saw her face, because you could see that she is wailing. And I think her face was a bit red. So it's definitely a serious injury. And I really do hope that it's a speedy recovery, because she's a very talented player.
Okay. And I see many people tweeting to say, please don't share the actual injury. It's quite horrific, right? Yeah. People are suggesting that. But you're saying there are rules against that. What are the rules?
Yeah. If a player is injured on the field, now you can't really show the incident that happened and also the player that is injured.
Okay. So you mean that the drama of the incident becoming bigger than the game, rather shift that away, let the medics handle that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Certainly get it. I really hope she's going to be fine.
Absolutely.
Really do, yeah.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Bears Nordia Drive westbound in Melville has a crash at Judith Road. The N1 northbound in Midrand is where stationary buses reported before New Road, and the N3 in Heidelberg is where truck crashes reported near Dustville Interchange, traffic being stacked travelling north, queuing traffic also further in both directions. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle at Spaghetti Junction, the N2 southbound has a stationary truck after Umgeni Road, and the M4 northbound queuing towards Bayhead Road Bridge. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road exit, and Stellenbosch Arterial Road eastbound in Kells River slow moving towards Noyensfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
When they walk on the pitch, both teams will believe they will triumph, but reality kicks in during 90 minutes of action. Who will dance to victory between UJ ladies and First Touch ladies? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. UJ ladies versus First Touch ladies on Sunday 27 July at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Chasing the Sun is a 5-part South African sport documentary series. An inspiring story of the 4-time World Rugby champions, the Springboks. The journey of winning the Rugby World Cup, a behind-the-scenes look of how the green and gold team overcame adversity, divisions, and doubt to become world champs. Be there when history shines. Tune into SABC2 on Sundays at 7:30 p.m. from 13 July to 10 August. Also available anytime, anywhere on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hear the rhythm, feel the heat at the Imbaula Music Festival in partnership with SAFM, where music, culture, and community come alive. Join us on the 2nd of August 2025 at Pretoria Botanical Gardens from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to vibe to Sanal musician Calvin Momo, Amanda Black, Zing Ngumalo, Trompis, and many more. More than just music. Share stories, spark change, and unite against gender-based violence. Grab your tickets at imbaula.co.za. Brought to you by SAFM and SABC1. Hear the rhythm, feel the heat. Imbaula.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
But which way Nigeria?
Okay, now we can connect from Nigeria to the markets with Makwe Masilena, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good to connect as always, Makwe. You've got
Experts
news.
Joining us today to look at this.
Okay, there's some gremlin in the system here, and hopefully we'll try and sort that out. But Makwe, are you there, right?
Limited.
No, we don't have Makwe. Okay, let's see if we can just reconnect on that issue. Perhaps just while we're setting that up, we may have a connection problem on that side. Let's see if we can just, in the meantime, just reconnect, maybe play some voice notes if we can. Unless we've got you there now, Makwe, yeah?
Also an energy expert.
Yes, afternoon to you, Ashraf.
All right, thank you. We're getting some sound coming through in the background, and I'm not too sure what that is.
I'm going to start with you, Mr. Shomi, with what seems to be the question.
Okay, let me do this, Makwe. We need to just sort out the sound. Let's do this right after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Okay, let's see now if we can go back to Makwe Masilela. You're there now, right, Makwe? Makwe, you there?
So what?
Okay, I think we let's do this. We may just play some WhatsApps in the meantime. Or let me just tell you what else is coming up. Okay, I think we now do have a thumbs up to say we've maybe just sorted out. Let me just remind you, by the way, in terms of the conversations we've had, we played some sound, some really telling sound of Gayton McKenzie. And you know, by the way, if you follow us on Twitter or the X platform as well as on Facebook, then the entire show is done on streaming live. So you actually watch it as well, which means you can, forget even a podcast, you just go back to the sound, to the show starting, and you'll hear all of what we've done throughout the show. So you can listen out for that too. Then many of the other conversations we've had, they're all up as a podcast, and you can certainly check that podcast out. Go to safm.goza and then podcast and then the National Pulse, and then listen, please do, and then share that with your friends as well. Okay, I think we now do have Makwe with us. Makwe, hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, okay, finally, I'm glad we finally connect. Right, you've got news to start with regarding Mr. Price.
Yes, this is the Q1 update. The guys gained over 300 million in market share over 12 months and highlighting the effectiveness of their fashion value offering. Group sales for Q1 up 6.3%. Their performance was positively impacted by the timing of Easter holidays that fell into April, and also strong sales growth in May due to the tenuous winter season. That's against a weak base of negative sales growth. And the guys opened 31 new stores, taking their total stores to 3,061. Cash sales up 6.3%, making 87.5% of their total sales. Credit sales up 6.1%. And Ashraf, Trump has now set his sights on trade talks with the European Union, even if the European Union released almost 100 billion euros no deal plan, that is to match the US 30% tariffs. That's after reaching an agreement with Japan on 15% tariff. The record-breaking run in global stocks got fresh fuel, easing concerns about the tariff war as traders turn their attention to earnings coming from US tech companies. Expectations are that more countries will strike agreements ahead of the 1st of August deadline, avoiding significant damage to company profits and global economy. Locally, traders raised bets that our central bank will extend its interest rate cutting cycle next week after inflation rose less than expected. That is 3% for June. The JSE, which is up almost 19% so far this year, raised the psychological level of 100,000 for the first time, and that's on hopes that the crucial budget vote will get support from key GNU members. And Ascot Ingram, the makers of Panado, is selling 35.7% for 42 billion to India's Nalto Pharma. Thereafter, they will delist from the JSE. Share price jumped over 21%. Oil prices edged lower with trade talks in forecast. Brent crude is down 0.6% at $58 a barrel. And trade deals between the US and Japan boosted risk sentiment and had a safe haven demand for the euro metal. We see gold is down 0.4% at 3,417. Platinum is down 2.7% at 1,427. And as of the more trade deals Trump gets, the more confidence markets gain. It's all grain in the JSE up 0.7%. The rand fell almost 0.1% against the dollar. It's now 17.57, 23.79 against the pound, and 20.58 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Makwe. We'll connect again with Makwe tomorrow. Don't forget SFM Markets Update coming up 6 to 7 this evening. Still lots more to come, in fact. But what we'll talk about next is the appointment of the NYDA board. You know what that is? We'll talk about it next.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply. If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Champions need motivation above and beyond winning. South Africa, show your love and support for the WAFCON defending champions Banyana Banyana. Witness the CAF Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So I'm looking at a message from you who have no name because I don't know. It says, "Hi Ashraf, I listen to SFM from morning till Oliver at night." Wow. Thank you. Well done. You're simply the best. You blessed brother. Station must keep you in the slot. Well, I'll tell you what, you're very, very kind. Kind for the compliments and the praise. But as you know, I am the, let's call it the captain of a team with many coaches that puts it all together. And we're part of this that delivers every day. So thanks for that feedback. And great that you listen to SFM every single day. So you must be so informed and fingers on the pulse that you can share that with your family every single day. And that would be the intention, isn't it? Right, let's then talk about a development regarding the NYDA, the National Youth Development Agency. You probably have been checking it out. I certainly have in the last few months about this whole list and whittled down from a longer list to a short list, and finally an appointment of people who will serve on that NYDA board for 3 years starting on August the 1st. This is in line with the NYDA Act. So Let's understand what actually has happened, who are the people who will be serving, and what do they really do. With me, Liesl van der Merwe is the chairperson of the Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities Portfolio Committee. Liesl, thank you for connecting on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and very good afternoon to all SAFM listeners.
Right. I suppose, for younger people, this board is like the cabinet. It's that important, isn't it?
Yeah, as the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, we are really overjoyed that the President finally acted on our recommendation. This has been a long time coming. The Minister appointed an interim board in November of last year. We already, as a Portfolio Committee, had started the process in August and September of last year. And in March of this year, we tabled a report to the National Assembly, which was for the very first time unanimously adopted by all political parties. We ran a very merit-based, transparent process. And so having passed that report in March already, that recommended names for the President to consider, we became very anxious that it was really dragging on. And of course, like you said, there are so many challenges facing young people in South Africa. We really do need an NYDA that is strong, that is credible, and that is able to make a meaningful impact in the lives of young people. So we are really glad that he finally looked at our report and that he acted on it.
So help us understand this. What then is the function of the NYDA?
So the National Youth Development Agency has got a mandate to drive a solution to the many problems facing young people. We know that South Africa has got the highest youth unemployment rate in the country. So they have got to do various different jobs. They've got various different responsibilities. In other words, they've got to provide skills to young people, or at least facilitate skills training opportunities for young people. They've got to mentor young people. They've got to get them into entrepreneurial opportunities. And of course, they receive R1 billion from the fiscus. So they obviously need to use that money in a manner that truly enables young people to find jobs or to create jobs, or just to make an impact in terms of this youth unemployment national crisis that we're facing. In the past, of course, the NYDA had troubles in that it had been seen not serving all young people. But we do hope that now that there's a new CEO at the helm of the NYDA and that there's a new board coming in, that we will really be able to take the NYDA to the next level, and that they'll be able to meet their mandate, and that they'll be able to make meaningful impact, in driving some of the solutions that we want to see them drive.
Okay, let's talk about the board. I mean, so there's a lot of conversation around this board. So who are they?
So we initially shortlisted 20 candidates, and they were wonderful young people coming from all over the country with various skill sets and, of course, passionate about the work that they want to do for the NYDA. We interviewed those 20 candidates. We finally recommended to the President 9 names. And yesterday the President came back and he selected 7 people and appointed them to the next board. So, for example, you've got as the new chairperson, Dr. Sunshine Miende. She holds a PhD. She is an expert, I believe, on matters regarding restorative justice. The deputy chairperson is Mr. Bonga Makanya. He's an economist. Among the names, we've got a lawyer, you've got an activist, you've got somebody with business management skills, somebody with international relations experience and political sciences qualifications. They really come with a whole variety of skill sets, and we're really very proud of the young people we were able to find, and we were very happy that they've put their names in the hat and are willing to serve our country. So we do believe that the young people that have made themselves available are really going to make a difference.
Okay, and you said you effectively, as the portfolio committee, you make the recommendations, and the president finally makes the decision, right? And that's what's happened now. But you also said it's the first time in I don't know how many years there's been unanimous acceptance. So does that suggest that it's highly contested and deliberated over in the past?
Yeah, so look, in the past, let's not beat around the bush. In the past, the NYDA was seen as an entity that served certain political interests or were even connected to certain politicians. As the new chairperson of this portfolio committee, I really wanted to see us run a merit-based process one that is not tainted by anything, any political agenda. I wanted us to find the very best young South Africans that can serve our country. And so that is what transpired. We really just looked at people's skills. We looked at the way they interacted with us. We listened to their vision. And yes, so that is exactly what we did. In the past, there would have been opposition from opposition benches, but this was really the first time in the history, I think, of us in democratic South Africa where all parties, the GNU partners as well as opposition parties, supported the names. So the report was unanimously adopted. And I also think that is really setting them up on a good footing because they come into the job having received the full support of all political parties that are represented in the National Assembly.
All right, and just lastly, so yes, it's a 3-year stint, right? So if you go from now to fast forward 3 years, how would you measure them? How would you measure the success of not just the board, but the entire agency, the entire NYDA over a 3-year period?
Well, let me tell you, we've in the past we've had problems with the way they spend their money. For example, firstly we want to see, and currently they've got offices in big cities, and we've said to them, the first task is we want an NYDA that is visible and accessible, especially to our rural youth. So we want them to take their services into rural areas. We want them to spend their money wisely. In the past, for example, they would take a few people overseas, young people overseas, and create opportunities through training opportunities for them overseas. And we feel that money can be spent better. In other words, you can train much more people by training them locally. So we're really going to be sitting with them, crafting a vision, and with the money that they get, which I said is R1 billion, which is the bulk of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities budget, it means that we will also have to exercise greater accountability over this budget, over the new CEO and over the new board, and we will be setting targets for them. Of course, we must see eventually youth unemployment coming down. And so those we will be setting targets for them, monitoring them, but accessibility, visibility are some of the key issues that we want to address as a matter of urgency.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would say ditto to that because I did say earlier on it's maybe not the cabinet, but in reality it is such a significant agency, for want of a better word, that we need to monitor and see it has the power to empower. So we much appreciate your time, Liesl van der Merwe, chairperson of the Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities Portfolio Committee, reflecting now on the appointment of members of the NYDA board for a 3-year period starting on the 1st of August. All that's now happened, ticked off. Now let them get down to work, isn't it? Right, I want to hear from you, which I'll do in a moment.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, here's comments and on issues of school nutrition and reflecting on Gayton McKenzie.
Ashraf, one word for the incident of Kenny Kunene and his ally, Gayton McKenzie, disillusioned. Wanda Kwekuza from Nongo.
Okay, so you are disillusioned. Got that? Here's more.
Hi, Anonymous here. Actually, on Kenny's issue, there's a picture circulating with Kenny and that guy at the clubs that was taken in 2023. And then he said he doesn't know him. He was accompanying some person. Now this picture, people have got, they went to the files and pull out this picture when they were together. I don't know what the implication of this picture now, if it's true. So it shows that these people might be connected in one way or another.
Well, I mean, that has certainly been the issue. Let's see how that plays out, right? Got that? And therefore the investigation. Yeah.
Hi, regarding the school nutrition corruption, I think what's worse is that nothing actually filters down to the schools who need to be the beneficiaries. So it's more than just the money being stolen, just zero service delivery at ground level.
Okay, but I mean, schools do benefit. I'm talking of the learners, unless you know differently. I'd like to know. Right, the other issue we spoke about, the United States and that significance of that bill.
Hi, Ashraf. Yeah, just wanted to mention, man, I saw that, heard that news about U.S. committee passing the bill. That bill passed through the committee. about sanctioning the government officials in South Africa. You know, our government officials are now world famous. The world knows that these people don't have a conscience, they have no integrity, no morals, they are completely evil. They intentionally destroyed this country. What a disgrace, Ashraf, what a disgrace. But these people don't feel anything. Thank you, Ashraf. Mr. Naidu, Durban.
Thank you, Mr. Naidu. But you know, your point is so clouded for me, because I don't know what you mean when you say they're world famous. Okay, I get that, they'll be known, but they're disgraced by what they've done. What have they done that has caused the ire of the United States? What they've done domestically is what we do in our domestic politics, and we have, assuming they're guilty of corruption, we have a criminal justice system, people go to court, there's inquiries, but this is about foreign policy. Are you suggesting that our politicians are all wrong with regard to foreign policy, and therefore the American position is right, and our leaders, that is, are an absolute, to quote you, disgrace? I'm a bit confused. I really am. And I wonder if anybody else has picked up on that. Right, it's Greg Kroos is in the hot seat. It's 5 o'clock. Time for the news.
Thank you, Ashraf. Joburg Water takes over water and sanitation billing, and the UN to suspend emergency food aid in Nigeria. Good day to you. Johannesburg Water has officially taken over the billing functions for water and sanitation services from the City of Johannesburg, effective from the 1st of August. The responsibility, previously handed by the Metro's Revenue Shared Services, has been transferred to the water utility, and a move aimed at improving efficiency. While customers will still receive a single consolidated municipal bill for all services, Johannesburg Water will now manage the billing process. Johannesburg Water spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala.
The transition process has been carefully planned in coordination with the City of Joburg to ensure continuity of service and minimal disruption to residents. By managing billing internally, Johannesburg Water will be better positioned to respond directly to customer queries, address discrepancies swiftly, and introduce innovations tailored to customer needs.
The bail application of the man linked to the murder of the chief forensic auditor, the Ekhululeni Metro and Paul Mafole, has been postponed to next month by the Kempton Park Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg for further investigation. He was shot and killed last month while driving on the R23 in Kempton Park. He had been probing a R2 billion electricity scandal in the Metro. Mafole had just submitted a detailed report and charge sheet identifying those allegedly involved. The NBA's Pindim Jondendwane.
The accused was arrested and later applied for bail. He is currently out on bail of 5,000 in that matter. 5,000 rands bail was granted. Hence, as the state, we will be opposing his release on bail on this matter of Mafole.
The MK party in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro and the Eastern Cape has called for stronger action against crime and corruption. Today, party members and local residents joined hands as they marched to the KwaZakhele police station. The area has become a hotspot for drug activity and gang violence. The march is also in support of the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner. The MK party is Zandile Wetkana.
Let's make sure that we call everyone to say this is enough now. We cannot take this anymore because we are all suffering here. Business people are suffering. There are protection fees that are being paid. There's illegal firearms everywhere in our townships. So this is very scary for our children. We are raising children in this very dangerous environment.
Former Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says the electoral system in which MPs are accountable to their political parties and not the electorate is a factor that contributes to corruption. He says the country's electoral system has been set up in a way that allows those in power to be involved in corrupt activities without much being done. Zondo was speaking at the South African Council of Churches National Anti-Corruption Conference in Johannesburg.
We remain represented by political parties in parliament and legislatures. This system gives party bosses too much power. This means that if the party bosses want members of parliament who are members of their party to vote in a certain way, they will control them. And therefore, the victim there is the fight against corruption, because they will make sure that such a vote of no confidence does not succeed. We have been there.
The Northwest MEC for Economic Development, Environment, Conservation and Tourism, Bitsa Lenkopane, says her department is fully committed to shaping the province's economic future. She was delivering her department's budget vote in the Northwest Provincial Parliament today.
The new introduced liquor license shows a better projections immediately when this act is being implemented. We will now get to the increased trading hours, the extension on the days of opening. We will now have this act enabling our traders to open up to Sunday. We must also indicate that the increase in trading hours, which the MEC has gazetted, also give rise to the extension of the market.
Finally, the UN says at the end of this month it will be forced to suspend emergency food aid for more than 1 million people in northeastern Nigeria due to a lack of funding. The World Food Programme says this is happening at a time of record levels of hunger. The programme says its food stocks have been completely exhausted. And recently there's been militant insurgency which has intensified, causing civilians in northeastern Nigeria to flee their homes and farms. The top story, Johannesburg Water has officially taken over the billing functions for water and sanitation services from the city of Johannesburg, effective from the 1st of this month. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Gos.
In sports this hour, Salgado sidelined for the rest of the year following successful surgery. And in the business of sport, we look at how Banyana and South Africa's women's football could be in crisis. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
More from Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Randburg, queuing towards Malibongwe Drive. The R59 northbound in Alberton has a crash before Kliprefie Drive, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria, a stationary vehicle reported near Rigel Avenue. All lanes are open. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle before the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. On the N3 southbound, a crash reported at Hilton, and on the M19 eastbound in Pinetown, a crash reported after Otto Follick Road. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is queuing towards Coburg interchange, Dock Road in the waterfront, where crashes reported at Albert Road and Campground Road in Newlands, slow moving between Main Road and the Cricket Stadium. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Hashtag your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
Tani Esther, or should I say the Tupperware Tani? How's business going?
Business is booming. I've been operating out of the boot of my car for 10 years, but shame, it couldn't keep up with my growing empire.
Okay, so you sold it to We Buy Cars?
Yes, quick. Sold my old one, bought a bigger one. I even sold some of my Tupperware to the friendly guy who picked up my car.
Stick to what you know best, eh, Tani?
Excuse me?
Never mind. We Buy Cars. Geared for your business, geared for you.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. SAFM, in collaboration with the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz, brings you the Jazz for Young People concert happening at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July 2025. Tune in to Seasons and the Soundtrack of Your Life, broadcasting live. This unique event is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity, and community spirit. Bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz from young musicians, curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring National School of the Arts Band, Willow Crescent Magnet School of Music Band, Biko's Manor, and many others. Have fun while doing good. Tickets are available at Quicket for just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, I picked up a quote from a business person, Lincoln Marley, the CEO of SACC Technologies. And what he said certainly got me thinking and should get you thinking. He said, if you feel that serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. You got that? If you feel that serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. Now, I say that because of what we're talking about next, these developments around two people, senior people of the Patriotic Alliance, Kenny Kunene and Gayton McKenzie, who's the leader, right? And all of that central to the issue around the murder of DJ somebody who died 2022 it was, right? So about 2-3 years ago, in fact, right? And the sense now that at the home of a person who's now somehow been linked to that murder, Kenny Kunene was there. Not at the time of the murder, but now. So there's enough for people to be concerned about. And as you now know, Gayton McKenzie, in fact, made a decision last night to effectively ask Kenny Kunene to step aside for now until there's a full investigation for 30 days. In fact, this is what he said, right? He said, Kenny Kunene will be investigated. And I'm going to tell you who's going to investigate him. Lawyers of good character. While he's being investigated, I'm going to remove him from being an MMC. I'm going to write to them. I'm also going to tell him to stand back from politics for 1 month until the investigation is done. Now, that's why we're talking to Professor Dirk Kotzer, who's a political analyst from the University of South Africa. Professor Kotzer, appreciate you connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, there's really two parts to this. One is, the legal aspect of Kenny Kunene, guilty, not guilty, which I'm not asking you to pronounce on. The other part is the position and the stance taken by Gayton McKenzie. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's something which is worth giving him sort of credit for. I think it took a lead from also from President Ramaphosa, the way in which he dealt with the Minister of Police. But in this case, I think he took it further. If this is something, if this sets a precedent for other political parties and parties that are involved in coalitions, I think this will be a good development. The main thing here, which is different from, let's say, the way in which the ANC and other parties have looked in the past at this, for example, with respect to the step-aside rule, is that they must first be charged, and maybe if they are guilty, then the consequences will happen. Well, when it comes to public office and persons in positions, especially in executive positions, then it's not necessary that they must be found guilty in order to be removed. Then it is about the question of ethical conduct. Then it is about whether the public in general will still have trust in that person to continue in positions or not. So I think this is an example of that, where it's not necessary for him actually to be investigated even. There's enough doubt now in the minds of the public about this particular situation.
So interesting, you say there's no need to even have him investigated. Therefore, the 30-day, let's just call it step aside. It's not the words that the Patriotic Alliance would use, but I mean we all get that. You're saying that in fact that's wrong, that's incorrect.
No, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not necessary. If one looks at in the situations in other parts of the world, if there's enough sort of suspicion or doubt, or just the situation is not regarded as what is expected of a public official or public representative, and that is that he is seen to be with a person who is now regarded as a possible, or that there's the possibility of linking that person to a serious crime, then that in itself becomes reason for someone to stand back.
Now, interesting, I mean, you initially mentioned he took a leaf maybe out of the president's book. In fact, that's where many people will differ. They'll say, in fact, the president generally, when there's been issues around members of the ANC in particular, he's been particularly long-winded about making decisions and not speedy. And in fact, in a case like this here, Gayton McKenzie has actually acted as, speedily as a Formula One driver on takeoff.
Yes, that is so. And that is why President Ramaphosa's step, in my mind, is different from what he did in the past. In the past, he would have said it must first be investigated, and there must be sufficient reason to believe that the person has done wrong or even been convicted. In the case now of Minister Tulu, he put him on leave. So this is a first step. It's not definitely, in my view, he actually should have removed him as minister, but it's at least different in terms of degree from what he normally did in the past.
How, again, an audience listening, they pick up different vibes around this issue. The show is called The National Pulse, so they feel things very, very differently. There is one school of thought that says actually Gayton McKenzie had absolutely no choice. The other is the point that he made, that he believes that, never mind he's asked Kenny Kunene to step down or step away for 30 days. In fact, he believes he's done nothing wrong 100%, and he's pronounced on that already.
Yes, I think that's difficult to understand, except if he says, I haven't done it because of my own conviction. I've done it in the public interest, and therefore that it is about the integrity of his party, the Patriotic Alliance on the one hand, and at the same time for the role that he played in the mayoral committee in Johannesburg. So, from whatever point of view you look at this, the point that he took this decision, I think it's something that, as I said, one should give credit for him for that.
What about the broader issue then around Kenny Kunene himself? Many may refer to him as sort of guilty by association. From a legal aspect, how do you analyze this?
Yes, well, I don't think one can say there's any evidence that, from a purely legal point of view, that there's at this stage something that can be proven that he acted illegally or that there's some element of criminality involved in it. I mean, what the information that we have available now does not confirm that. So it's therefore not in the first instance a legal question now. It's a question about his public role, his role as a public representative. If any other person were there at that point in time, but is not a public figure, nothing would have happened to that person.
Okay. What, just from your side then, so that we understand it, what then in his role as a public figure, compromised him so much in terms of him being at the house of a person who now maybe, tarred with suspicion around the death of DJ somebody?
See, what no one would talk about, and of course it's not politically correct, but we all know the history of Kenny Kunene, that he was himself already in jail. And that's something which is very difficult to walk away from. So the public image will say, well, the fact for him to be able to become involved in some activities again is not impossible, which is unfair to say in objective terms. But I think that's how many people are thinking. And that is why it is there's almost more of an onus on him in order to prove that he was not, that it was by coincidence almost that he was there, that he was not involved in what has happened, the association of this person with a possible crime, all those type of things. And that is, I think, what the investigation that Gayton McKenzie is talking about will have to prove. And because ultimately it is to restore the doubt that exists in the minds of the public, I would say.
Okay, just the last thing, therefore, you mentioned Kenny Kunene's past. Excuse me, you could say the same thing about Gayton McKenzie. Whatever may play out in court, if it ever gets to that, is one thing. But what damage already has this have or will have on the reputation of the party itself?
Well, I think initially, if Gayton McKenzie didn't do anything, it would certainly have damaged the party's reputation. The fact that he does that is, in a sense, to a large extent, damage control on the side of Gayton McKenzie, and the fact that he did it so quickly, because I think he realized what are the possible implications of it. And the PA is put in a relatively good position within the Government of National Unity, the role that he plays as minister, for the future of the party. So he sees there is a growth potential for the party, and therefore if something like this happens, it can have very negative impact on them. So I think this is, therefore, it's very much about the future of the party, it's about his own political future, and the way in which they are going to approach, for example, next year's election. I think that especially Kenny Kunene, as when it was right in the beginning part of the EFF, and what happened there, and these parties and champagne parties and so on, it created the public image, which is very difficult to deal with and to set aside. And I think this is the fact that he is now again in the news is something which, in a sense, reactivates those ideas.
Well, reactivate is maybe the operative word there. Prof. Dick Kotzer, political analyst from the University of South Africa. Much appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Runners will brighten the streets of Phalaborwa during the F21 Half Marathon. It is a unique race that starts in the afternoon. Athletes confront the unkindness of the heat. This special running day honors 3 decades of endurance and unites Phalaborwa in motion. The 2025 edition promises an unforgettable experience. Catch the F21 Half Marathon on Saturday, 26 July at 1 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC2 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Join us for this year's fundraiser, Jazz for Young People concert at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July. This unique event, perfect for families, is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity and community spirit. So bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring the Parktown Girls Band, Tshwane School of Music, The Real DJ Zandi, Kutlotaro Jazz Band, and many others. Tickets are just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12 via Quicket. Jazz for Young People is proudly brought to you by Standard Bank Joy of Jazz.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
Every day we come to work and we listen to the pain, the disappointment, and the heartbreak that South Africans feel about where we are today.
Large number of municipalities are failing to deliver the goods. Are we being taken over by criminal syndicates? You can't resist to ask yourself those questions. Where are we? If you look at our parliament now, you see people in military regalia using military language. They are commanders, they are CICs or commander-in-chief. You ask yourself, are we in democracy or are we in dictatorship by the military?
Ambassador Dr. Kingsley Makubela is a former diplomat.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen and nothing is off the agenda.
You are listening to SAFM Radio this Mandela Month.
It is in your hands now.
Right, the Department of Small Business Development will be hosting the Global SME Meeting, which is really all about empowering small businesses to drive economic growth. So I'm sure you want to find out more about it. It's much needed in the country, we know that. Tune in tomorrow to the Talking Point, right, from 9 to 12, as we bring you the very latest updates and insights from the conference.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, let's get into another issue that we need to be talking about here, and that's the issue of the update, the ongoing Senzo Meyiwa murder case, right? Lots has happened today. Let's get the thoughts and an update from Pearl Magubane, who's been covering that story. Pearl, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting with us.
The listeners.
Thank you. Right, so of course you've had your eyes on what has happened there. Give us an overview of what has happened today.
Well, today, instead of hearing testimony in the beginning of the morning from a photographer that took pictures of the inspection earlier this month, we had delays as one of the accused, Fiso Ntuli, refused to come to court essentially in the beginning. And when court is scheduled to start just after 10, he arrived just before 11 a.m., stating through his defense counsel, Zandile Mshololo, that he had been tortured and deprived blankets. We then had officials from correctional services, a member, Emmanuel Kebengu, who came ahead of the CMAX, who came just to explain that no, he was not denied blankets, but yes, indeed, he was moved from the B max to the C maximum security section following the crackdown that was there at Hosimampuru earlier this month on the 8th of July, because he was found in possession of a cell phone. Ntuli denies this, stating that since he moved to CMAX, he's been tormented and tortured and deprived sheets and blankets, and even has to bathe in cold water.
Okay, quite significant. Any other aspects? I mean, I would think there would be a reaction on that, and you may want to just tell us about some of the aspects that come out of it that you can share.
Judge Ratamokgotleng had to intervene in the matter because, this is the second time that a matter from Hosimampuru has affected proceedings this week alone. Earlier, we had an issue of iron shackles that were, they removed the protective pads from the inmates that were there, and they felt pain. So there was a ruling earlier this week to say that those protective pads had to go back. And yet again, the Hosimampuru, came back in the court proceedings, and he has ruled now that Fiso Ntuli must be moved from that facility and to Luokop, north of Johannesburg, where he can attend following, for the completion of this murder trial, because we can't have interruptions or continue to have interruptions based on things that happen in prison which are not within his jurisdiction. He did, emphasize as well that he's not authorized to make this order, but for the sake of progress, then he needs to say that the officials can move him to Luokop, where he would feel comfortable and not feel that he's being targeted as he says he is and tormented throughout. And therefore, we should hopefully have progress in the main trial.
Okay. Finally, what happens next?
Well, tomorrow we are having what the state says it's just a short proceedings. They're saying that they're wrapping up their case as they're just finalizing the last exhibits. They have called, according to their list, all the witnesses on the state's list. And then after that, when they conclude the case, we're expecting to hear from the defense as to who are they going to call to come and testify in the trial.
Okay, let's leave it at that. We'll certainly connect with you soonest. I'm sure of that. As always, Pearl Magubane, the SABC News reporter, effectively covering the Senzo Meyiwa murder case for a number of years. In fact, it's such an important issue. And when will all that end, right? Thank you for that, Pearl. Right. In fact, there's further comments, and I'm just picking it out from you because some of the audience are tweeting, as I've suggested. If you want to tweet, just use that hashtag the national pulse so we can pick up some of the thoughts that you've said. So here's one from Neil Crowe saying, there's enough evidence and doubt that Kenny Kunene should be removed from the role of MMC, irrespective of the 30 days. His role as a public officer compromised him, I think is what it is, and the optics for the party isn't good. Ashraf, Kenny's past will not be forgotten. Okay, there we are. And in fact, here's one for you, Tumi. You can answer that when we get. Okay, let me do this. When we start sport, I'll tell you about it because I think it's completely related to what you have to say. Now, it also tells me that you have a chance to comment. We've had a few people talking about the decisions in terms of the bill from the USA and the implications to South Africa, the government, and the African National Congress in particular. Further comments from that, I certainly want to hear about it. Then, of course, the all-encompassing, Gaten McKenzie, Kenny Kunene story. But that's not all. There's also some other issues, right? Those footballers were stuck. Was it Portugal, who are now back home, I understand, but they were literally bailed out, I understand, by people from a church or members of a church who supported them and got them back home safely. But there could be many other issues that perhaps have slipped by and you want to just put it on the agenda. So go ahead and do just that. Here's the news with Greg Coase.
Quick look at the headlines. The EFF in the Free State has rejected the move to split 3 municipalities in the province. Johannesburg Water has officially taken over the billing functions for water and sanitation services from the city of Joburg. And the Kremlin says a Russian delegation is on its way to Istanbul for talks with Ukraine. A full update at 6 o'clock.
This is SAFM Sports with Domin Khapele.
Right, Jimmy, let's talk sport. In fact, you made the point that you needed to tell us more about an update on Gabriela Salgado. So where are we with that?
Well, she has been ruled out of action for the rest of the year. The 27-year-old underwent successful surgery. This is after she sustained a serious injury where she fractured the mid-shaft of her left leg, and she will stay with the team and fly back with South Africa next week. And basically, Coach Desiree Ellis has been saying that from here on, because obviously now they're going to play for third place at the WAFCON, they're going to play for Gabby.
Look, there's nothing more we can do. There's 2 days, a recovery day and 2 days. And again, when we huddled after the game, we said if we didn't have a reason, now we have a reason to play for Gabby. To make sure that she goes on with the medal. That's what it's all about at this moment. To make sure that she goes on with the medal. To make sure that Jermaine ends off well. That's how important it is.
So, yeah, as we know, they're going to play for that bronze medal. And as you heard, Coach Desiree Ellis is saying that she told the team to make sure that they fight hard so that Gabby leaves that tournament with a medal. Remember, actually, the last time she couldn't play again because of injury. And it's quite unfortunate because yesterday was the first time at the tournament she was starting because she's been coming off the bench.
Yeah.
So, I really do hope that Banyana do win that bronze medal for her. But still talking about Banyana, as we know that they are going to play for that third place at the WAFCON. It's time for us to look at the business of sport.
Before you get to business of sport, here's a related question, if you can answer it quickly.
Yeah.
It comes from Ndwandwe Zwide saying, Ashraf, please ask to me if there is no provision for players to catch a break emotionally after such a Salgado scene. We get water breaks in hot environments. Why not allow them to recollect the emotions before starting again? The game even restarted without the sub. Now, how interesting is that?
That's a very interesting question. He does have a point, but I don't think there is some sort of provision specifically for emotional break. But there is an obligation that when a player is injured on the field, the referee needs to stop play. The player needs to get medical attention and then play resumes. Unless if a player dies on the field, that's when play is suspended. Okay. So in terms of injuries, it's just that. But also if you're probably asking yourself, what did Banyana or the technical staff do to help the players? The team is traveling with a mental coach, and therefore that coach is the one that's tried to speak to them afterwards.
Sort of after the event. I think the point is in the moment, right? Okay, let's get on to the business of sport.
The business of sports with Domin Khapele.
All right, as per usual, every single Wednesday, we're talking to our finance sports guru, who is the founder of Cash and Sport. And today, we're just looking at the state of women's football in South Africa and is it in crisis mode? Nqobile, always great to chat to you. A good afternoon to you. But let's start off with the national team. I mean, there are reports that Coach Desiree Ellis does not have a contract. How true is this, and why would she not have a contract as a head coach of a national team?
Good afternoon to me and Ashraf and everybody else. Yes, Coach Desiree does not have a contract. Her previous contract was from 2022. It was a 2-year contract. It expired in 2024. And since then, they have not been able to meet an agreement with regards to the extension of the contract. But the main reason, outside of, you should negotiate and so on, is mostly cash flow issues. SAFA has had major cash flow issues for the past year. If you recall, they got bailed out by the Ministry of Sport by essentially being given an advance on Ministry of Sport funding last year just to pay salaries in December. So that's the main issue is huge cash flow issues, which don't really allow them to commit to long-term contracts. And that's been part of the problem outside of her own individual negotiation matters.
Very interesting. And I mean, we've seen how that cash flow issue at SAFA has been all over the news. And we also saw how the players were striking before the tournament. And it was said that everything has been resolved. Is it fully resolved?
It's not resolved. The players, as far as I'm aware, haven't all been paid those fees. There was a discussion with regards to commitments from SAFA and so on, so that the players could play, but that issue is not resolved, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back up. Immediately after they come back, that issue needs to be resolved, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back up again.
Absolutely, very disappointing. Then what is happening then with regards to sponsorship and SAFA? What is happening there?
With regards to sponsorship, there's some major problems. The largest one in terms of the women's league in SACC, SACC has stopped their sponsorship of SAFA pending the finalization of an agreement that ended in June. That's why SACC was not associated with SAFA at the Women's AFCON. With regards and part of the issue also is because 100 teams in terms of regional teams have taken SAFA to court with regards to where is the money that they should have received from SACC that would have gone through SAFA. And part of the question is, if you give SAFA the money, does that money then trickle down to the teams? And that's been a problem. With regards to Hollywood Bets, they thankfully did renew that agreement, but it was late. It was a couple of months late. It was supposed to be renewed at the beginning of the year. Part of the reason why there was a delay in the beginning of the Hollywood Bets Women's Super League season is because that agreement hadn't been done and they had some issues that they had to resolve. So there's some major issues with regards to sponsorship as well. And by the way, those are the two biggest sponsorships. If those are the two biggest ones, it basically means that the rest of the football game in terms of women is struggling if those two are really struggling badly.
Absolutely. I mean, when I just think about the national teams, I think there is an attractive product to be sponsored by big brands. Why then do you think at SAFA, or what needs to change at SAFA so that we get more of these big brands on board?
I think SAFA is really struggling from a perception issue, and the perception is really with regards to the president and leadership. I don't want to call out individual people, but I think that's the main problem. The other issue obviously is that some of the games aren't really televised and so on, so it causes a bit of an issue with regards to being able to attract sponsorship and revenue. But part of the major issue is for me personally is if you give SAFA money, you generally don't have a guarantee that your money is going to go to where it's supposed to go to, and I think that pushes a lot of sponsors and potential revenue away. They just don't want to be associated with the potential problems. And I mean, the team can go away, win a bronze medal, but then they come back and there's a fight about money. That's not good. Nobody wants to be associated with that.
That's crazy. I can only imagine how then the issues in the boardroom is going to eventually trickle down to on field.
Yeah, the boardroom issues have already trickled down onto the field. If you look at the performance of not just Banyana Bafana Bafana as well. There was issues with late payments and so on and so on. They're already trickling down onto the field, and they affect performance. At the moment, we have a real big problem with regards to what's going to happen after these players retire, because Jermaine is retiring. Tembi refused to play for personal reasons. Matomatlo retired just before the tournament, and we've got a whole bunch of players now in this current team who are not going to be playing at the next Women's AFCON because they're close to retiring. If we're not supporting and the boardroom issues have caused issues in terms of the Women's Super League and the league, where are we going to get the players to play in those tournaments? I don't see a bright future if this is the state of women's football at the moment in South Africa.
A big concern, a lot of things to think about from SAFA's point of view. But Ngobile, thank you very much. That is Ngobile Ndlovu, who is the founder of Cash and Sport. You can follow all his pages on social media. But I must say, I really am worried about the state of women's football, especially when it comes to the finances overall. But that is the business of sport today. And I will be back again tomorrow.
Noted. We'll hold you to that. Thank you.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported after Rigel Avenue, and the R59 northbound in Alberton has a crash reported before Klip River Drive. In KZN, the N3 eastbound has a crash and stationary truck before Key Ridge, and the R102 southbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway. And in Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards Muway, and Baden-Powell Drive eastbound slow moving towards Strandfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
My name is Sintabiseng Majia. I play as a striker. Between working at a farm and a salon, I'd go to the farm because I love animals. We're sitting nicely, playing music, make some jokes, forget about anything that I'm going through. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects like Wi-Fi.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy, you've got you've got a show to host from 6 to 7, but to set the scene, you've got news about the JSE.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Anyone that hasn't been watching the markets today would have missed history being made. The JSE touched 100,000 points. It closed above 100,000 points. It's the first time in the history of the JSE that this has happened. Interestingly enough, it is it is 1,000 times bigger than where it was when it opened back over 60 years ago. We're going to have a conversation around that. We're going to have multiple conversations. I'm going to chat to one David Shapiro around that because he's probably one of the few people that was still active in the financial markets today that would have been around to see the birth of the JSE. And we're also going to chat to the Director of Capital Markets at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange around the historic moment that was today and where we go from here. Then we've got a conversation with the CEO of South African Airways around the accounting irregularities that were clarified in the latest set of results, as well as their decision to help out FlySAF Air amidst FlySAF Air's strike concerns at the moment. So we're going to see what's happening from a South African Airways perspective there. Then we've got a conversation around Sasol and looking at the NatRef business. Sasol is one of the shareholders or stakeholders involved in NatRef. The other partners in the NatRef business went into business rescue, or one of the other partners at least went into business rescue, and this is all part of Sasol's restructuring plan as well that has them concerned around that and concerned around some other areas of their business. So we're going to get a sense of where that could be going. We'll have to speak to someone outside of Sasol because Sasol's currently in a closed period preparing those results for us. But of course, we will get those conversations from Sasol when that closed period ends. We've also got a conversation taking a look at the calls by the Minister of Communications to potentially relook at how the global streaming services like Disney Plus and Netflix are being taxed as compared to some local broadcasters. And this comes off the back of interesting developments on the Canal Plus multi-choice side as well. So we're going to see if we can take a look at all of that around the broadcasting space. And then we're going to wrap up the show with an executive lounge conversation. We've got the CEO of the Chartered Governance Institute of Southern Africa to join us on the show today to take a look at what he does and what he doesn't do when he's not at work. So we're going to take a look at those conversations a little later on. But for now, a quick sense of how the markets have moved throughout the day. On the currency front, the rand has been getting stronger against the dollar again. 17 rand 55 there, 23 rand 80 against the euro, 20 rand 58 against the 20 rand 58 against the euro, 23.79 against the British pound. 11 rand 55 against the Australian dollar. $118,000 is what one Bitcoin will cost you. In rand terms, with the stronger rand, that is around 2,076,000 rand. And if we look at the commodity prices, the gold price still above $3,400 a fine ounce, 3,410 odd. Platinum 1,466, palladium 1,337, and Brent crude still below $70, around $67.50 a barrel there. Equity markets were all in the green. No exceptions, every single international indice and the JSE in the green. Biggest gainers in Asian markets, the Nikkei up 3.5%, the Hang Seng up 1.5%. European markets, the FTSE up 0.5%, the DAX up 0.2%, the CAC 40 up 1.5%. US markets, currently the Nasdaq is up 0.1 odd percent, with the S&P up about 1/3%. Local markets, resources up a 0.25%, 0.22%. Industrials 1.7% to the green, and financials 1/3% up. As a result, the all share up 0.86%. The top 40 up 0.95%. And as I said, of course, those all-time highs on the all share are what we're going to be looking at and reflecting on. But that's a conversation for just after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. To enjoy your show 6 to 7, and then sport coming up 7 to 8. And Oliver Dixon gets in the house as well, I know, much later on, right? More to come. It means I talk to you after this.
Hey, halala, halala, halala. Hey, halala, South Africa.
My name is Regina Mogolola, a midfielder. Banyana Banyana, we are the African champions. My favorite hairstyle is short haircut. Between a farmhouse and a beach house, I will choose a farmhouse. If I receive a 5 million rent secretly, I will share with the team. Fellow South African, continue showing Banyana Banyana love and support them all the way. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
The Morning Brief.
I think a starting point is you sharing with us what your experience is
of the strike's impact on flight operations this morning?
Yes, absolutely. It's with deep regret that we've had to cancel some flights today. Although we had commitments from pilots to operate these flights, several of them withdrew those commitments late last night, which has unfortunately necessitated the cancellation of a number of flights. And of course, we sincerely apologize to those affected customers. We've sent messages to all of those using the details that we were provided at the time of booking to advise them of the changes, and our teams are of course on standby to assist any passengers that need assistance at the airports, and of course to expedite any refunds so that people can make alternative travel arrangements.
That's Kirby Gordon. He speaks on behalf of Fly SACC Air.
Tulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get to you. Any comments? I know it'll be touched on extensively after 6, but that 100,000 mark, the JSC's All-Share Index is now hit for the very first time. That's huge. I mean, think about that in sporting terms. How big is that? Let's talk about the ANC.
Good afternoon, SAFM Ashraf, Mr. Malabek. My opinion, if the ANC, which I support, ruling party, if they stop the crime and the looting and the corruption and all that, then they will lose the power. What I mean, because once the country become a less crime and the ANC doing well, I mean, the people of who voted, they look the ANC, and the ANC, they weren't able to steal and to do something really. That's why they know the crime, where the crime and all that, and the problem and the corruption and some management and some police are not loyal to the country, so they know it gets it. That's why, I mean, everybody do whatever they want, because the people, they must not be stable, I mean, because when they're stable, they look the government, and the government won't survive, because the people dictate what to do, and because they can see the reality. So it's a part of the old system. I mean, let them do crime and fight and kill each other, and we're going to rule and we're going to benefit. I mean, elite and whatever the ANC, some of the elite are benefiting.
Okay, well, you're saying so many things. I'm going to just pause and let's see if others want to pick up on that too, right? Here's one on the US tariffs.
Good afternoon, SAFM and to listeners. It's Sylvan Governor from Durban. Mr. Ashraf, 1st August is around the bend, and I'd like to find out would Mr. Donald Trump's tariff export increase, or what's the feedback with that, and how would that import tax duty affect our local entrepreneurs and farmers? Thank you.
I think, you're talking about farmers. We probably need to get Wandile. Was it Wandile Sohobo up on here? We've chatted him a while back just to get a complete update on all of that, because he's like the absolute champion voice in that space. So maybe, if not tomorrow, maybe the next day or so, I think we need to do that to get a complete update. So good reminder for us. Thank you for that, right? Right, here's another on, Kenny.
Ashraf, this is January in Port Elizabeth. Look, I just want to know, man, are we crucifying Kenny Kunene because he's a public official who went to meet with a person under a criminal investigation? Or would we hold ourselves to the same standard? Assuming what he's saying is plausible, what is the uproar about? And let's assume that guy was a family member of his or a friend of his. Would we have expected him to distance himself while that man has not yet been proven guilty? I just want to understand. Why are we, what is the actual issue? Why are we pursuing this guy this way?
But you see,
which standard are we applying in essence?
I hear you, but you said like we 3 times. So who's the we? And is we you, or is it me, or is it somebody else? Interestingly enough, I mean, he was asked what he was doing there. I think the chat with Professor Dirk Kotze was interesting because he made the point about he is a public figure, so he's held to different standards. He's a public servant, in fact, right? As an MMC in the city of Joburg. So that's very, very different to you or even myself, right? On the other hand, when he was asked to explain, I mean, he gave some example about taking some journalists on a media tour. So, I mean, that was his answer. So he didn't say we related. And in fact, whatever it is, it's caused Gaten McKenzie to say he believes in 100%, but he still believes need to step away and be investigated. So maybe, more than anybody else, what Gaten McKenzie says is telling, considering there's no charge against him, is there?
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. Flores here from the beautiful Western Cape. Ashraf, do you perhaps have the website or the address of Kenny Kunene's online newspaper? It's the first time that I heard of this online thing. Yeah, I'm curious to see what's it all about. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Okay, I don't have it now, but let's see if Keys can find it, or Temba. Let's see if we can pick it up and share that with you. Points taken. There are more. In fact, there's so many thoughts on Kenny Kunene. Wow.
Very good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Angel here in Klaksdorp. Yo, I can feel Gaten Mackenzie's breathing through the pipelines of the ICU. But my question is, Kenny and Aya Queenie Kenny.
Okay, got that. So many questions for Kenny. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hear that Mackenzie, but okay. I'm not saying Kenny he did that, but first of all, what he was doing with the guy, was their connection, was their deal, what he was doing to the guy's place, what are they planning, what are they doing? So, like now. He doesn't know me, then how can I just go to his place maybe? What's our deal? That's the question I can just ask.
Well, you do sound like the prosecutor, and a point taken on that one there. Here's another.
Ashraf, cut it, man. We can't take it anymore. We can hear the guy is like, how can we be sure that the person is definitely not lying, that he's not guilty? No, man, Ashraf, please cut it, man. Cut it, man. We can't take it anymore, man. You know, these politicians will lie and lie.
Okay, so that was, of course, the Gaten Mackenzie conversation. When you say cut it, what do you really mean? I just don't assume it. What do you mean by that?
On Ashraf, he's not innocent. He's guilty as they come. He knows what he's done. He's been doing this thing for longest time you can think of. I mean, he thought he was gonna get away with it, and he's not. He is not.
Okay, sure. Guilty, like guilty by the media, guilty on air. Is you've judged him.
Gaten Mackenzie showed true leadership about what he did. I respect him. Hey, this is Skills in KZN.
Well, I'll tell you what, that point about Gaten, we may not agree with some of his other politics, but he was very decisive on this one. He is. And some may say, well, maybe he's trying to cover himself, but the fact is, what about the others in similar positions? Have they done anything similar with that haste as he's done?
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the SAFM listeners. I think we must not be too critical on Gaten, and we just have to allow the process to unfold. I think he has done a lot of justice by ensuring and letting us know that there's a team of good lawyers who are going to look into this matter to do their separate investigation, while there is another investigation done by the relevant stakeholders. So let the process unfold and not push too much. Gaten is trying his level best.
Well, I mean, who's been critical of Gaten on this issue? I don't know, actually.
Hi, Ashraf. This is my Connors from Johannesburg. Yeah, you can see now we're seeing criminals masquerading as politicians. It is actually being unfolding here, and we're going to hear much more than that. We'll see, and we'll keep watching. Thanks, Ashraf, for a good show.
Thank you. I appreciate that you're listening in, and much appreciate that. Let's talk about the PA.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Why does the PA hate the DA so much? All their problems, their misfortunes, always they mention the DA, specifically DA. They don't mention any other parties. They used to have a problem with Malema, not anymore. It's the DA, this DA, that. Every time they got problems. Or are on the bad side of the news. And Inamas from Soweto, thank you.
Okay. Don't know, have the answer. Maybe we should put it to them when we get a chance, if indeed they are what you say they are.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the SAFM listeners. The problem that I have, especially with these reformed criminals, is that as much as the guy might be reformed, but they'll always keep the guys, these other criminals close by. They always form allegiances to these criminals. So you end up not fully believing in these guys, and whatever good that they do, you end up having that but at the end of the day. Because you know these people will end up disappointing you again, or maybe return to crime. This is the point I think Kenny is at the moment.
Would you say that with like such certainty, like you know?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Lennon Khwedi here. Ashraf, Gaten is right. And so do some of us. We agree with him because we knew Kenny before he became a politician. It just happened that he was at the wrong place and at the wrong time. And as a society, we forget all the good things that Kenny used to be and used to do. Like today, we don't know what type of a person we are talking about. But some of us, we still remember him. He will never hurt anybody. He's a fun man, actually. Lennon.
He will never hurt anybody. Okay, noted.
Mackenzie is a covenant respecter. That's the one word to describe him. Thank you, Ashraf.
Okay, and
Bruce from Bethlehem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's end with the SAFA conversation.
So, Ashraf, I was just listening to the reporter on SAFA, on the soccer situation, where he's lamenting that SAFA have let the youth development program down and they haven't done anything to support youth development in soccer. And then in the same sports report, you hear that Rassie has taken 3 of the under 20 players that have just come back from winning the World Cup and is exposing them to 2 weeks of fitness and conditioning coaching with the Springboks to give them a taste of what it's like to be involved at that level. If you look at those 2 stories, it tells you exactly why Bafana cannot even qualify for the World Cup and rugby wins the World Cup. I think that is such a pertinent illustration of the difference in the 2 sports. This is Brian from East London.
Well, is it the 2 sports or is it actually the coach? Just think about that. But I have said so before, Brian, that the other day, in fact, I think the box, in terms of the impact, in fact, all Springbok box and the baby box and the Blitzbokker, at this point in time, it's not just sport. They should be a prototype for just about everything that we want to do around excellence in our country. I'll hold you to that, and you can hold me to that too. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching as well. It is the National Pulse. We'll do it again tomorrow, 3 to 6. Right now, here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Opposition to splitting Free State municipalities and latest Russia-Ukraine talks in